Jungle.
Hello, you are listening to Trump Republic Radio. It is November 18th, 2017. I'm your host, Enzo Quesada, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Bobby Hester.
Hello, everyone.
And this week, for the first time in a while, we don't have a guest on, and I don't know, it's good having guests, but it's also fun just doing me and you shows, Bobby, because we get through things real quick, don't we?
Absolutely. Very fast.
Yeah, but we're coming to you on a Saturday. We're going to be busy on Sunday going to Survivor Series in Houston, wrestling. So we got to do the show today. But we got some good stuff to go over, and let's get into it.
Yep.
So the first thing that we want to talk about is the House has passed their tax bill.
Absolutely, yes. The House of Representatives passed the tax reform bill with 227 votes in favor, 205 votes against. There were actually 13 Republicans who voted against tax reform. The reason why we had 13 Republicans vote against is mainly because of the fact that it included in it the ability to not be able to deduct your state and local taxes.
Which I know some congressmen out of California and New York didn't like so much.
I believe it was, one of the GOP congressmen from New York, he actually said that that's the reason. Representative Dan Donovan said that is the reason why he voted no, was specifically because of that. The Senate bill, I believe, does not have that in it. So you should have less Republicans voting against it for that reason. Also, the House GOP plan cut the corporate rate to 20%. I believe the Senate bill, people have said that it doesn't even have corporate tax cuts for like a year. So that's one bad thing. I don't like the Senate bill as it currently stands. There's some better things about it. Mostly, I don't like it. The Senate bill, it actually, I believe the Senate bill, it does include a expansion for the child tax credit, which is something that Trump ran on, especially in the last couple months of his of the election last year. And also, the Senate bill expands to 7 brackets for income, whereas the House bill only has 3. I'm sorry, 4.
It's 4,
and they wanted to simplify that down. So I don't like the Senate bill as it stands, but that means it'll go to reconciliation before a final vote in Congress. So some things from the Senate bill will come in, if the Senate votes for it, that is, and some things won't be included. But it's a very good first step that the House passed the bill, and it now moves on to the Senate, where who knows what will happen in the Senate?
Yeah,
we can talk about
the Senate's going to be a bit harder. So we had some leeway with voting in the House. We could afford to lose some Republicans, and it still passes. We only have a margin of 2 for our majority in the Senate, and the senator from Wisconsin, Republican Ron Johnson, has already said he will be voting no on this.
Yeah.
So we can only afford one more dissenter.
Yeah, so if you get John McCain says no, or John McCain and Lindsey Graham says no, you're out. Now, in the House, every single Democrat voted against it.
Yeah.
So if that holds true for the Senate, you're absolutely right. We can only afford one loss. But, I mean,
it's possible.
It is possible
that someone will come over, but I think it's more likely that every Democrat will vote no.
That's how I'm thinking as well. I mean, as long as you get 50, you got Pence as your tiebreaker. So that's one good thing. However, there's one thing I forgot to mention. That's the Senate GOP tax plan, unlike the House tax plan, does get rid of the Obamacare individual mandate. That's the one that forces everyone to pay a penalty if they don't buy insurance. So that's something that definitely does need to go. And, I mean, that's the reason why people are starting to throw on these numbers saying like, oh, if tax reform passes, 13 million people are going to lose their health insurance. No, that's not true. 13 million people that were forced to buy insurance that they didn't want or was too expensive are going to drop their plans because they want a different plan that's cheaper or don't want or need health insurance as it currently stands. So, it's the whole...
Which, if we pass this, I mean, we're, penalizing millions of people every year for not even getting health insurance, which is predominantly affecting young people.
Yeah.
So it really, is opposed to what the narrative they present to you on this.
And not only is it affecting young people, what it's really affecting is poor people, or I should say poorer people. 79% of households that pay the Obamacare individual mandate have a combined income of less than $50,000 a year. So you're literally taxing the poor people more than the rich.
Yeah.
Because the rich people already have health insurance. What you're really penalizing is poor people who can't afford health insurance are now forced to buy it with these super high premiums that go along with Obamacare and all the things that go along with that. So what you're really doing is, this is yet another thing you can say, you're cutting taxes for the middle class. You're cutting taxes for poor people. You're saving them money, and that's the whole purpose of tax reform here.
Because the penalty is what, $600 a year?
It's something like that.
It
goes up every year. I know that they said 79% have a yearly income of less than $50,000. 37% have a yearly income less than $25,000.
Yeah.
So almost 2/5 of people that pay the individual mandate penalty of $600+ a year barely live above poverty lines.
Which is funny, Democrats have no conception of this, but, the Affordable Care Act is penalizing people for not being able to afford health care.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense personally. And, they've got some other statistics from states that have, really bad economic data. And, we bring up Arizona because, they have some of the highest premium increases in the country. And John McCain...
Over 100%.
Yeah, and John McCain ran on, I'm going to repeal Obamacare, and then didn't vote to repeal Obamacare. He voted against it. He voted to keep it, which was bad. And so, it's interesting because 153,000 households in Arizona are forced to pay that penalty. Okay? And they said that in 2015, those combined households paid over $69 million to the IRS for refusing to purchase Obamacare. The average tax per household was $454. That was 2015. Was $454 per household. 2016, 2017, 2018 coming around. That's going to be nearly $700 per household because of that. 82% of Arizona households paying that tax make less than $50,000 a year. So, Arizona, one of those states where you'd think John McCain would be the champion to actually, do what he said. If he votes no on tax reform, he is yet again screwing his constituents.
Yeah, so it's really important that they get this aspect of the Senate bill in the final tax reform bill. It's the best thing we can do if we're not going to pass any sort of health care reform at all.
Yeah, and, like we said, it's possible that you might get some Democrat flip over. Mostly we might think maybe Indiana with Joe Donnelly or West Virginia with Joe Manchin. And so
maybe Heidi Heitkamp in North Dakota.
It's very possible.
I'm saying probably 60% chance everyone will say no.
Yeah, and I can just go through the numbers like I just said real quick. In West Virginia, the percentage of households less than $50,000 a year that paid it, 81%. And in Indiana, again, 81%. Like I said, Arizona was 82%. Missouri, Claire McCaskill, again, 81%. And Montana, with John Tester, 75%. So you can see across the board, a majority of the people that pay that penalty are making less money. And so, if you really want to cut taxes on the middle class and poor people, you need to include that. So that's one of the things that is in the Senate bill that isn't in the House bill. So if it goes to reconciliation, that's probably one of the things that will move forward.
Yeah.
And, other than that, I obviously want to see tax reform passed. Tax reform needs to be passed. It's not something that you can wait on. And so
it's funny though, when you look online, anyone talks about this, 80% chance they're going to say, "Oh, this tax bill is just tax cuts for the rich." But then we sit here and we tell you, "Oh, this is how the Obamacare, individual mandate is penalizing poor people, and that's why we need to add this to the bill." But the bill is never given that credit for cutting, that expense to poor people.
No, like I said, the last several months, Trump has been saying the priority is the middle class. We've talked about how on the show where taxes on the rich will actually be raised under this plan.
Yeah.
So, like I said, if you're someone who wants if you're someone out there who wants taxes to be raised on the rich, you should be on board with this program. I mean, I actually took a screenshot earlier in the week of some of the numbers for tax reform, and it's actually pretty interesting in terms of, you know how we always say that, like, the top 1% pay, like, almost all the taxes?
Yeah.
Here's some statistics from the IRS from 2015. The top 0.1% pay 20% of all federal income taxes. The top 1% pay 39% of federal income taxes. The top 5% pay 60%. The top 10% pay 71%. Top 25% pay 87%. The top 50% pay 97%. The bottom 50%, which is, you know, who you're really going after here, only pay less than 3% of all federal income taxes to the government. So
almost nothing.
So by prioritizing on that bottom 50%, that 3% of people, that's not going to make too much of a difference, especially when we said taxes on the rich are going to go up. So those percentages are going to go up.
And what was the percentage you said for the top 20%?
The top 20%, I didn't say the number, but the top 25% was 86.6, so I said 87%. So almost 90% of all federal income taxes are paid by a quarter of Americans.
Now, we've in past weeks have looked at different numbers, and it said the top 20% pays 95%. So it's around there, 90, 95%.
And like I said, these numbers are from 2015, so it's likely a little bit higher. If you do, 95% is a little bit high, but if you said around 90% for the top 25%, that would be an accurate
But
number.
like I've argued with people on Facebook, and I've had like a lady say like, oh, 73% of the tax cuts from this bill are going to go to the top 20%. But if they're paying 90% of the taxes,
it would affect
then
them
they're
more.
being disproportionately like underrepresented in the cuts. But they still want to portray it as though they are, these big beneficiaries of this bill. They're not.
And like I said, if you look at that individual mandate, people are saying, oh, if you cut that out, 13 million people will lose their health insurance. That's just the way that they word it. What in reality is, 13 million people are not going to be forced to buy insurance that they can't afford to begin with, especially when 81% of those people are making less than $50,000 a year. Those are people who, can't afford health insurance as much as, richer people, obviously. And so what you're really doing is you are taxing the poor more than you're taxing the rich by keeping that in. So that's something that definitely needs to be gone. And every time you see people argue that, people are going to lose their health insurance, that is absolutely not true, especially since we've seen there are things that Trump has done. I know he signed the executive order to let people buy insurance across state lines. As we said, that's going to take several months before you start seeing the effects of that. That alone, if you can get rid of the individual mandate, people might actually drop off their insurance altogether, or they might be like, I do need insurance. It's too expensive where I live. Oh, state, halfway across the country's got it for cheaper and more plans. I'm going to buy it from them. Then they don't have to pay the penalty, and they pay less money than now for even better insurance.
Yeah.
So it makes complete sense that, you should get rid of this. Incentivize people to purchase cheaper plans if you want, but don't penalize them for doing it, especially when they don't make that much money to begin with.
Yeah, it's so crazy, the narratives, though, that we just have to contend when we talk about tax reform. And we've been dealing with this for months on end, addressing these different qualms that we always see. And at the end of the day, they never change their playbook on it. It's always just, these are for the rich. These are for the rich. You, in the end, the middle class and the poor, are going to pay for their tax cuts to the rich. But if you look at what they've actually put down on paper, it says the exact opposite.
Right.
I just want to see this stuff done, and then we can see the results, and then I can say I told you so, because it's not what they make it out to be.
No, it absolutely isn't. And I don't really have anything else to say in tax reform besides the Senate bill did clear, I believe it's like the House budget, or I'm sorry, not the House, like whatever the Senate committee was, that stuff has to go through before being allowed to go to a final floor vote.
Yeah.
So it's going to go to a final floor vote. What's that?
It went through committee.
Right. So it's gone through committee. It's going to hit a floor vote probably next week, maybe the week after.
We don't have a
next week.
confirmed date for the vote.
They haven't set any date, so just whenever that happens to be, it's not going to be too long. I can guarantee you that. So
they're trying to get this done before Christmas.
Yeah,
so.
And that's what Trump said. He wants to sign it before Christmas, or even on Christmas. Give everyone a good Christmas present. I want to see it done as soon as possible, personally. So
yeah,
that's me.
Let's move on to the next thing that has been really blown up this week, and that is Al Franken has been accused of sexual assault. Now, we don't talk about every single sexual assault, accusation that comes on the show, just because there's been so many.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even remember all of them, but we do want to highlight this one because he is a sitting senator at the moment, and it's been really interesting because the left hasn't really criticized him that much, and there hasn't been a lot of calls for him to resign whatsoever.
No, I mean, you take that, in comparison to like the Roy Moore allegations, and we're going to get to that later in the program during our elections coverage news. But there are outrages from everybody calling for him to step down, for him to be replaced, for people to vote for Doug Jones instead. But you got Al Franken, a high-level Democrat senator who, this isn't even allegations. This is a photographic evidence of him groping a woman while she's sleeping. Where's the outrage? I mean, where's the calls from Democrat leaders for him to resign? Where is Mitch McConnell even calling for him to resign? No one's saying anything because they're complete hypocrites.
Yeah. And, if you haven't seen the photo that exists, so it goes back to a 2006 USO tour that Al Franken went on with some people part of Saturday Night Live. He used to be a writer for the show.
Yeah, he was a comedian before he was elected to the Senate.
And it shows a photo of him having his hands over the breasts of sleeping Leanne Tweeden. Presumably when they're flying back or something.
Yeah, what had happened was whenever civilians go to military bases overseas, especially for USO tours, putting on performances, whatever, priority is to keep them safe. So whenever they're traveling to and from planes and whatnot, they have to wear bulletproof vests and helmets. And a lot of them just keep it on once they get in the plane, and then they just fall asleep because it's like a 14-hour flight. Unless they stop in Germany or something. So I can understand the situation where she was in. They'd probably been working for several days. They were tired. They were finally just going home. She passes out, pretty much on the plane. And he's just like, I'm going to grope her. And the thing is, like I said, they have the picture of this. She said that she didn't see the picture until after they landed, when they gave everyone involved, the photo set of all the pictures they'd taken while they were there. That's when she discovered it.
Yeah.
So, you have evidence from this woman, and she's now a news anchor with KABC Radio, out of somewhere in California. So it's not like she's some nobody person. She's a well-known person who has done this for a long time.
She also tells another story of an interaction with Al Franken, where for the skit that they wrote, they have a kiss in the scene. And Al Franken was saying, we need to rehearse the kiss. And she's like, no, we don't need to do that. It's whatever, we'll just do it live. But she reluctantly, agrees to do it. And in her words, quote, Franken came to me, put his hand on my back of my head, mashed his lips against mine, and aggressively stuck his tongue in my mouth. So, pervy guy, this Al Franken. But just the really crazy stuff has been, like I said, the reactions. There's been so many articles of people just eschewing any sort of responsibility for what he did. In the Washington Post, they have an article that says, I am a feminist, I study rape culture, and I do not want Al Franken to resign. It's an article by Kate Harding. I'm not going to go into it, but that's just one of so many articles I saw this week where people are just okay with it, and it's purely because he's on their team.
Precisely. And, if he was a Republican senator, the calls for him to resign would be even bigger than Roy Moore. Because, unlike the Roy Moore situation, when it's just accusation after accusation with no real evidence, the fact that there is photographic evidence of him groping her while she sleeps gives more credence to the story she talks about of him aggressively kissing her during that rehearsal of their skit. If there wasn't any picture of him groping her, I mean, even I will admit, I might not believe the story. Because at this time, everyone's coming forward with all these stories. Very few have any evidence whatsoever, at least in terms of guys like Kevin Spacey and who are the other people. Some of them have admitted to doing some of this
Louis
stuff.
C.K. admitted.
Yeah, Louis C.K. admitted. Even Al Franken said something along the lines of I don't remember doing this.
He said sorry now though for doing it.
Yeah, so he admitted that he did it. There's a difference between admitting someone's done it and just being like, no, this never happened. These people are making up stories about me, which, I will admit, I think a lot of the stories people are coming forward with against a lot of different people are made up. I think a lot of them aren't true. That's just my opinion. But I definitely believe Mrs. Leanne Tweeden here when she's talking about what Al Franken did to her. So
Yeah, but it's just light and day differences between what Roy Moore is accused of and what Al Franken is accused of. And I've seen leftists say, like, oh, this is a false equivalency between the two. I don't really see how it actually is, because they're both being accused of... Roy Moore is being accused of lesser things.
yeah,
Like, of the accusations that are put up against him, he's accused of lesser things than what Al Franken has done. But, I don't know. I don't have much else to say on this, other than, I don't know, I wanted to see something happen to the guy.
yeah. I was gonna say. Apparently, I think one other woman said something about Al Franken, but I didn't really. No one's really talked about that at all because the focus has just been on this.
Yeah.
Rumor is that next week there's going to be something coming out about another high-level senator. So we'll see where that goes. I wouldn't give too much, movement for that unless it actually happens. I mean, like I said, people are saying stuff about everybody, it seems, nowadays, so I wouldn't be surprised if more things come out about more people. And, I mean, before we go on, I know, like I said, we're going to talk about the Roy Moore stuff later in the show, but ever since the Al Franken thing hit, the talk about Roy Moore has just been, like, really, really low.
It's dissipated.
It has dissipated because, it's like the left got caught with their pants down, really. I mean, that's kind of an ironic statement when people were talking about, like, Louis C.K., but it is kind of true. It's like you're focusing all your energy on a right-wing person who has very little evidence against him, and then a big story breaks about someone who is like one of their heroes, who is a sitting senator, who is a Democrat with evidence.
And Roy Moore's being accused of stuff that happened allegedly in the 70s.
Yeah.
And this thing happened in 2006. It's something else.
It is.
Let's go on to what Trump did out there in China, though, before he came back from his little trip.
Yes. So the backstory to this is there were 3 UCLA basketball players who were playing a game in China, and they got arrested for shoplifting. Now, shoplifting in China is a very serious offense. It carries 10 years in prison if you're actually convicted of it. And it just so happened that while Trump was there, was pretty much when they're being held in prison. And Trump asked President Xi Jinping of China to look into it and like let them go or whatever. Now, he didn't have to do that. Trump didn't have to do that, but he did. And within like 24 or 48 hours, the 3 basketball players, let me see if I can get their names here real quick. All 3 of them were let go. And so this is yet another instance of Trump using his power of the presidency to try to negotiate the release of Americans abroad. Like, Otto Warmbier in North Korea. Early on in his presidency, there was those Americans who were in, I believe, Egypt when Trump went to the Egyptian president to try to get them released. So multiple times we've seen Trump is using his power to say, look, I love our American citizens. I want them to be here. And the thing is, so they were good. And they were sent back home. They're currently home back in the U.S. right now. They have been indefinitely suspended from the UCLA basketball program, which I guess I'm fine with that because they were caught shoplifting.
They really disgraced the team.
They disgraced the team. They disgraced themselves. But what they did do was they did thank President Trump. They had a kind of like an interview type thing or a panel, I guess you could say.
Like a press conference?
Yeah, they had a press conference. And the 3 players, Cody Riley, LeAngelo Ball, and Jalen Hill, all personally thanked President Trump for getting them released. Now, the one person who just recently, I guess like today or yesterday, has come into the story is LeAngelo Ball's father, LeVar Ball. Now, if you're a person who pays any attention at all to the sports world, you'll know exactly who this guy is. His son, Lonzo Ball, was like the number 2 draft last year in the NBA. He's now in the Lakers. And, he was a hometown hero from California. He went to UCLA as well. But LeVar Ball is just this really crazy guy. And you can tell that Lonzo Ball, his son, really he felt uncomfortable like all the time. But the fact that this dude was so crazy, ESPN had him on like every single day. He was always making news like all summer during NBA draft type stuff. this stuff was going on. So, like, everybody knew who this guy was. But now that his son, who could have stayed in a Chinese prison for 10 years, has been released, all thanks to the President of the United States intervening, and he's not giving Trump any credit at all. In fact, he was asked about it. He was asked about Trump's intercession in it, and he said, "Who?" And he said, "What was he over there for? Don't tell me nothing. Everybody wants to make it seem like he helped me out. As long as my boy's back here, I am fine." Well, guess what, sir? Your boy wouldn't be back here if the president wouldn't have done that. So how about you show your commander-in-chief a little bit of respect?
I understand not liking the president, but you should at least be grateful that he prevented your son from spending 10 years in a Chinese prison. Okay, forget about the MBA for your little son there if he goes to jail for 10 years.
Well, college basketball. He's got multiple sons. Keep in mind who you're talking about.
I mean, his son would have went on to the NBA probably, though.
Probably, yeah. And also what pisses me off, too, is he insisted that the crime his son was accused of was no big deal. Okay? I can understand if you think that shoplifting isn't too big a deal. I mean, I personally think it is. But you also have to remember it was in China, okay? Chinese penalties for shoplifting and American penalties are two different things. We might make you give a slap on the wrist, pay a fine, minimum jail sentence. Over there, that's a big deal. So don't come out there and say, oh, this wasn't a big deal. It absolutely was. And I guess I'll just read a kind of a quote they said. He said, I'm happy with how things were handled. A lot of people like to say a lot of things that they thought happened over there. Like I told them, they tried to make a big deal out of nothing sometimes. I'm from LA. I've seen a lot worse things happen than a guy taking some glasses. My son has built up enough character that one bad decision doesn't define him. Now, if you can go back and say when he was 12 years old that he was shoplifting, stealing cars, and going wild, then that's a different thing. Everybody gets stuck in the negativity of some things, and they get stuck on them for too long, he concluded. That's not me. I handle what's going on, and then we go from there. He's playing it off as if
he did nothing.
His son did nothing wrong. Well, your son did do something wrong. He was caught shoplifting. So take some responsibility as a parent. Say, yes, my son did something wrong, and he's facing his punishment, which, unless there is some sort of legal punishment, his punishment right now is you're not playing basketball, which you've worked your entire life and career up to get to this point.
Yeah.
That's your current punishment right now, and if that ends up being the only punishment, then I think that's well suited.
Yeah, you're pretty lucky if that's your only punishment.
But you're lucky even more that your son is sitting at home on a couch watching TV in the United States, not playing basketball, than rotting in some Chinese prison half the way across the planet. So don't come out there saying, oh, this is no big deal. Take some responsibility as a parent. Say, I'm glad that my son is home safely. I'm thankful for the president for intervening on his behalf. He didn't have to do that. And then that's all you have to say. But don't make things worse. That's all I have to say from there.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I don't have anything else on this, though.
No, I don't.
Want to move on?
I do. So the next story that we have up is out of the Department of Justice. And apparently Jeff Sessions has directed prosecutors to investigate the Uranium One scandal. And this is big news because a lot of people have been wanting them to investigate it. We've been talking on the show for it about the last couple of weeks. But, it looks like there's going to be something done. There could be a special counsel opened up, much like the Bob Mueller Trump-Russia investigation, which we know is bogus. But it's possible they might bring on a special prosecutor. Jeff Sessions directed senior federal prosecutors to evaluate, quote, certain issues requested by congressional Republicans involving the sale of the Uranium One and alleged unlawful dealings related to the Clinton Foundation, leaving the door open for a special counsel. They said the Justice Department responded to a July 27th and September 26th request from the House Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte, who is a representative from Virginia, among other committee members, who called for the appointment of a special counsel to investigate the issues. So there is movement going on here.
Yeah.
And again, I know I don't like to bring up rumors too much in the show, but there is a lot of chatter right now that Monday there's going to be something's going to come out regarding Uranium One. Again, I don't know if that's true. It might happen. It might not. We'll see. But if that does happen, then at least we do have some data to show that there might be something happening here.
And I mean, there's a lot of heads that can roll in the Democratic Party if we get real deep into this Uranium One investigation, which is why it's really important that we do this, because it's time to expose the corruption that was going on under the, President Barack Obama's administration.
And Uranium One wasn't a small thing. Like, this was something that happened. It was obviously covered up. I mean, people talked about it back in 2015 when stuff first started to come out about it, but it was just buried by the media, buried by the government. But now at least we're going after it, or at least we're looking into some of the details. And like we've been saying, I brought up on the show a couple of weeks ago that this was the possibility that might happen, that the Justice Department was going to admit that they were looking into this. Do you remember when I had that? I believe it was when we had Shelby on the show 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I talked. This is exactly what I was talking about. The Justice Department has admitted, yeah, we're looking into this. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and heads will roll when we are done. So at least that's something that might have actually ended up being true. We'll see where it goes. Maybe something will happen on Monday.
It'll be a while before we probably see some real results on it. But
I think that, if the Monday rumor is true, there's like 2 Monday rumors here in the show already. If the Monday rumor is true, it probably won't be anything big. It'll probably be something small, but it will be something important enough to get the ball rolling more than it already is.
Yeah.
So even if we don't have any more updates from this story for like 2 months, as long as we know that there is movement happening, that's good.
Yeah.
Because this is something that's too big to just let it go. And I'm glad the Justice Department is looking into it.
Which, talking about things the Justice Department is looking into, on Tuesday, Attorney General Jeff Sessions was testifying before the House Judicial Committee about us looking into investigations into leaks. I can read some quotes from his testimony. Quote, "We have about 9 open investigations of classified leaks in the last 3 years. We have 27 investigations open today. We intend to get to the bottom of these leaks. I think it has reached epidemic proportions. It cannot be allowed to continue, and we will do our best effort to ensure it does not continue." So Sessions is doing his job in the Department of Justice, and he's going after these leakers that has been undermining Trump's administration from the very get-go. And we haven't seen leaking in an administration ever like this before.
No, this is almost unprecedented.
Yeah, a report from July the Senate came out with found that there's at least 125 news articles that were written based on classified information from the Trump administration in Trump's first 126 days in office.
So that's pretty much one a day.
One a day. And, these are communications that are secret for a reason. Mm-hmm. And, it's a crime to leak this stuff. So hopefully we get to the bottom of this.
And, there's one quote that Sessions had that I actually really like. He said, "This culture of leaking must stop." So, again, I'm glad that they're going after the leakers. As you said, we've never seen this much leaking in administration ever before. A lot of it's classified information. And a lot of it, frankly, I think that so much of what the outrage has been about this administration has been from stuff that was gotten leaked.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of that stuff is classified. Now, say what you want about the release of classified information that uncovers things that shouldn't be kept secret is one thing. But little stuff that should be kept secret to a later time, I mean, part of the reason why Trump can't get anything done is because of the fact that people in the White House and people working for, like, the FBI, holdovers from the Obama administration, are the ones who have access to this stuff. They're the ones who are leaking this. We've seen it multiple times that, those are the guys who are gotten caught, of the people who have gotten caught leaking stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if the other ones are the ones who are doing it as well. Other than that, I guess we don't really know much else about this story.
We'll just have to see what comes of it. But it's good that they're working on it. Let's go into the next thing, and this is in regards to big game hunting in Africa.
So there was a lot of outrage about Trump saying that he was going to reverse a ban on the importing of elephant trophies from Africa. There was a lot of outrage from both the right and the left regarding this. People were calling on Trump to not lift the ban. Now, pretty much what that meant is that people who go big game hunting, like, could almost have unlimited free reign in terms of, like, killing animals like elephants and other big game over there in Africa and then bringing that stuff back to the U.S. A lot of the illegal ivory trade in the world is because of stuff like that. So I can understand how a lot of people were really, really skeptical about when Trump first said he was thinking about getting rid of it. And less than 48 hours, after the administration said they were thinking about it, Trump came out, he tweeted, he said, quote, "Put big game trophy decision on hold until such a time as I review all conservation facts. Understudy for years. Will update soon with Secretary Zink. Thank you." And then Secretary Zink, the Secretary of the Interior, he went ahead and he released a statement saying, "President Trump and I have talked and both believe that conservation and healthy herds are critical. As a result, in a manner of compliant with all applicable laws, rules, and regulations, the issuing of permits is being put on hold as the decision is being reviewed." So good stuff, especially if you're a person who's an animal rights activist. They scored a big win, and I'm on board with this. I think, I'm a person who's pro-hunting, but I don't think that indiscriminate hunting of big game should be allowed, especially in Africa, like giving out permits in the United States for people to go over there. So I'm on board with this personally.
I was okay with them lifting the ban personally. I wouldn't consider myself some sort of animal rights activist.
Well, Enzo, you got to think about this. The number of African elephants has shrunk from 5 million a century ago to only 400,000 today. And that is all because of the ivory trade. A lot of it illegal on the ivory trade.
Yeah, most of it comes out of places like Zimbabwe, which, there's not a lot of economic potential out there, so they have to sell, ivory.
Yeah, but, this isn't just a left-wing thing. This is a very bipartisan. There's people from both parties calling for Trump to not reverse the bans. Calling for Trump to not reverse the ban. So I think it's a good decision. You might think it's not a good decision. But the new policy applies to the remains of African elephants killed between January 2016 and December 2018. So it goes for at least another year or so before it has to renew or whatever. So
yeah, I'm not really miffed either way it goes, though.
I like I said, I personally like it. At least it's at least it, if even a little bit, it gets the left on Trump's side, because so many in the left tend to be like the PETA types, like, oh, I gotta love the animals, and I can see how they would really be pissed off about Trump reversing the ban. So by him not reversing the ban, at least he is listening. He's listening to Congress, is what it really is, because Congress is the one, like I said, both parties, who called on him and said, "Don't reverse this ban. This is a bad thing. If you do this, don't do it." And he's like, "You know what? I've spoken to my Secretary of the Interior. We're not going to reverse the ban." So it shows he's at least listening to the people around him who are talking to him, wanting him to not do anything that is bad.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next thing we have here. And
Okay.
Trump made a little nomination this week.
He did. So he has nominated Alex Azar to be the next Health and Human Services Secretary. Now, the old Health and Human Services Secretary, Tom Price, remember, he resigned back in September because of his use of private jets that he should not have been doing. You remember that.
Yeah.
So since then, we have not had a Secretary of HHS. We still don't have one right now because Alex Azar still has to be, confirmed through the Senate and whatnot. But he is a longtime critic of Obamacare, and he is the former chief of Eli Lilly's U.S. division. So this is a guy who is in like the, I guess you could say the pharmaceuticals business. He knows that sort of stuff. He's a longtime critic of Obamacare, which I'd want a longtime critic of Obamacare to be the Health and Human Services Secretary. Other than that, he's anti-Obamacare, which, as I said, is important because remember what we said about the Senate bill has getting rid of the individual mandate?
Yeah.
So having someone on board with that in HHS is a good step. Also, remember, Health and Human Services has the largest budget of any single agency in the federal government, more than $1 trillion, because Medicare and Medicaid are both included in that.
Yeah.
And so having someone in there is definitely important. I mean, not having someone in there who knows what's going on in the department right now, but especially if we do look forward to make any sort of changes, not necessarily saying cuts, but just changes in general to Medicare, Medicaid, stuff like that, at least having someone in there who is on our side is good rather than have someone in there who's some big lefty who's going to stand up and hashtag resist at every step of the way. So,
yeah.
Other than that, like I said, he still has to be confirmed. He could be confirmed within the next few weeks, maybe a month or so. We don't know. Congress is focusing on tax reform right now, so the last thing they want to focus on is trying to get this guy in there.
Confirmations take a while to do.
They do take a long time, and especially at this point in the at this point, the Senate's going to try to delay it as long as humanly possible. Eventually, I do think he'll get in because he's a decent guy from what I've read. And, at least one senator so far, Senator Lamar Alexander from Tennessee, has come out in support of Alex Azar being the next HHS secretary. But Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon has not. He's a Democrat. And he's just mad because he's anti-Obamacare. So let him be mad about that. And if anything, it'll probably be something that goes ahead and comes along party lines, if anything. So other than that, that's all I have to say about that. We'll keep you updated with whether or not he gets confirmed.
Yeah, when he gets confirmed, we'll tell you. Let's go into the last thing we have for top of the news, then we'll go into the economy. And the last thing I want to talk about is the House Democrats this week, on Wednesday, introduced 5 articles of impeachment against Donald J. Trump. The Democrat representatives were Steve Cohen, Luis Gutierrez, Brad Sherman, and Al Green. The 5 articles focus on Trump's firing of former FBI Director James Comey,
Which was legal.
perceived violations of the annulments clause, as well as actions undermining the judiciary and freedom of the press. Now, I watched this little press conference or whatever they did live on Wednesday. I watched for about 15 minutes. I think they talked for like an hour or something. Steve Cohen was the guy who was talking for the most part. I think it's just kind of funny that they're even bothering to do this because no one's going to get behind this.
No, absolutely
Like, Democrats don't want to put their name to this. It makes them look bad.
And, I think it was either Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or someone along that line. Some high-level Democrat recently even called for the DNC to stop talking about potentially bringing up impeachment charges because they know it's bad for their brand, like you said. Along that, think about what impeachment requires. A 51% majority of the of the House Judiciary Committee brings that forward to a floor vote. And that means that they'd even have to get it to a floor vote. If Paul Ryan says no, then you don't get it to a floor vote. So not only would you have to get it through a committee, you'd also then have to have Paul Ryan agree to a floor vote, have 51% of the House, which is majority Republican, vote for it. Then the charges have to go to the Senate, where 2/3 of the Senate would have to vote for it. And I guarantee you don't have 2/3 of the vote in the Senate. You maybe have 49 if every Democrat, and if a couple of Republicans join the board, you might have like 52, 53. Even then,
Still
that's
not enough.
really, really pushing it. And so that's definitely not going to happen. So, at that point, you've got nothing. Oh, and I skipped a step even. They have to have a trial in there. And the Senate jury actually has to deliberate it first before they even bring it to a floor vote. So that's something where a Senate Judiciary Committee, which would probably be headed by a Republican, point is, impeachment's never going to happen.
This isn't going to happen. But the thing is, they get their bases hopes up pretending that this can happen by introducing this bill. All they're going to do is let them down at the end, and all they're doing is wasting time.
And you should have seen the hoorah from the left when this story broke.
Yeah, on Twitter.
They're all like, hell yeah, we're impeaching Trump. We're impeaching Trump. Where it's like, no, you got 5 Democrats, all of which are from very, very Republican districts. Look at Al Green from Texas. He's he's from the Houston area. He's like a D plus 23 district. So it's not like this is going to hurt him at all. He's been the guy who's been calling for Trump to be impeached for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised about the one name I didn't see on this list, and that's Maxine Waters. She's the one who's literally every day chanting impeach 45 at every single speech she gives, even at freaking, funerals and memorial services.
I was reading an article today where she was calling to impeach Trump because he name calls.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, Auntie Maxine can do what she wants. But even then, let's look at the actual articles of impeachment. Focusing on the firing of James Comey, Trump can fire whoever he wants for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that, it got in the way of this, Russia thing. Well, you got Bob Mueller. I'm sorry, I said Bob Mueller. Bob Mueller out there doing much more work than James Comey ever would have done regarding Russia. And obviously we know that investigation is complete crap. But even so, it's still there. Comey wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
Comey should have been fired day one.
We
Perceived
shouldn't
violation.
let him be in the administration to begin with.
Perceived violations of the emollients clause. So perceived, okay, so you don't even have like evidence that this clause was even broken. If you had direct evidence and be like, we are wanting impeachment because X, Y, and Z articles of some clause are broken, fine. But you're like, oh, we think he might be breaking a clause, or we think he might have broken a clause. That's not grounds for impeachment at all.
No.
And even then, actions undermining the judiciary and freedom of the press. What, by calling people names?
Well, during the press conference, when they got to the point on freedom of the press, they started complaining like, oh, the press are an important part of our democracy, and the president calls them fake news, and he kicks people out of his press conferences sometimes, and this is undermining freedom of the press, which is so important to our democracy. I hate appeals to our democracy because it's the most vague thing ever, but it's just like, fake news is a real problem, dude. Like, if Trump doesn't want to put up with it, he doesn't need to.
If there wasn't so much fake news, this stuff wouldn't have any traction.
Yeah.
If people only reported on what is actually going on and why people are doing what they are doing, like we said, to us it makes perfect sense because we follow this sort of stuff. We understand the way things happen in Washington, D.C. We know why people do what they do. We understand why people get in the way of what they get in the way of. You see so much fake news about stuff all the time. Like, I was reading an article on The Hill recently that was talking about, it wasn't talking about impeachment, but it was talking about something, I don't even remember what it was. But the point is, like, I got a paragraph in, and they'd already said something that was debunked like 2 months ago. And I was like, okay, so this is fake news already off the top. I wish I would have saved that article. But even then, actions undermining the judiciary. What actions has he done to undermine the judiciary? Can you answer that?
I personally can't. And, like, they don't openly state what specifically they're criticizing. So it's really weird. It's not going anywhere, but I wanted to highlight it because it's part of the insanity we're just seeing right now.
If anything, it's virtue signaling to their bases, like you said. And the thing is, they don't even need to do this. Like, they're all in heavy Democrat districts. So, yeah, they can get away with it. If they were in a close district and they tried to do this, they'd probably lose re-election.
Yeah. It just looks stupid.
And all of them are, like, establishment guys. I mean, I don't see a single name on that list of people that are, like, are even in, trouble of losing re-election.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's all about, is gaining re-election. So, yeah, you're right. They get their base all happy. They get some people on the left happy. If anything, what I really think they're doing this to try to raise more money for themselves. I really think. Because if you're a lefty out there who wants Trump impeached, and you're like, oh, that's the guy who said he wants to impeach Trump, who fired articles of impeachment, I'm going to send some money to him for his re-election. I would like to see how much money these guys raise in comparison to everybody else over the next year or so during the campaign season. That's what I would like to see.
Yeah. Let's move on to the economy now, though. You got the first thing here on blue-collar wages rising?
I do, and that's precisely what's happening. Blue-collar wages are rising at the same time as Trump coming into power. So this is an article from The Economist titled, Blue-Collar Wages Are Surging. Can it last?
The Economist.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, we never get anything out of here. But they said, in the 5 years following the recession, in June 2009, wages and salaries rose by 8.7%, while prices rose by 9.5%. However, in 2015, median household income adjusted for inflation rose by 5.2%. In 2016, it was up by another 3.2%. So I'm not sure if that 2016 number is 3.2% of the total at the end, but if you add those two things together, that's since 2015, an 8.4% rise, whereas in the 5 years following the recession, pretty much until 2015, it was only 8.7%. So if you were to chart that on a graph, you'd see it slowly rise and then kind of peak up really fast. And it says that was happening at the same time as Trump's rise to power. Now, they said in some cases, blue-collar pay growth now exceeds 4%. Which is really, really good if you think about it. And they also said that as unemployment has fallen from 6% in mid-2014 to 4.1% today, wage growth has picked up, which is true. A year ago, service workers were enjoying the biggest pay raises in the economy, 3.4% on average. They said higher minimum wages did help, whereas 25 states and localities did raise their minimum wages in 2016. So in terms of that, I guess that's all right. But they said blue-collar wage growth has surged ahead. They said tile and Tazaro contractors earn 11% more per hour today than they did even a year ago, and a full one-third more than they did in 2014.
It's very significant.
Yeah. They also said workers who make soap makers, like, from Fight Club, soap makers. Not the terrorist type.
I've never seen Fight Club.
You should go see it. It's good. That being said, they have had, again, 11% wage growth over the last year. They said, however, in the manufacturing sector, it's been actually kind of slow. We've seen a lot of growth in the number of people hired for manufacturing, but wage growth overall hasn't gone up. And a lot of that does have to do with, the money supply is to hire new people, not to pay the people who already have more.
Yeah.
Whereas for them, they said, it's only gone up by about 0.1%. So it's pretty much the same as it was. And also they said that goods exports were up 4% since 2016. The article kind of goes on. It talks a few more things. But, that's really all I have to say. I mean, it just goes to show you that Trump's rise to power is the reason why a lot of these things are happening. Is it a coincidence? I don't think so. No other person running for president was talking about this sort of stuff. No one, not even in the Republicans. And so, the one guy who's, bringing these issues to the forefront, and you happen to see things go good as he continues to be successful, that is not a coincidence. And I don't want to say blame it on him, but I'm saying it is his responsibility and his, I want to say his
under
fault.
His leadership.
Well, even not only his leadership, because this has been happening since he started running.
Yeah.
So I guess you'd say not.
It's the Trump effect.
There you go. That's the word. It is the Trump effect. And also, what's the Trump effect is unemployment. Because as we've seen, granted, unemployment has been falling for some time now, but it's fallen a lot since Trump has become president. In fact, 13 states in 2017 have seen record low unemployment get hit.
I believe Texas is one of them.
Texas is one of them. They said, Texas is one of them. I have the list here. But not only that, blue states as well. It's not just red states. So this is across the board. Hawaii, California, Idaho, Texas, Alabama, Maine, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Washington all met or beat their lowest rates ever recorded by the Bureau of Labor Statistics for unemployment. Also, Colorado, I know I'm kind of reading some of these also. Colorado, California, Idaho, North Dakota, and Oregon also hit their lows. So the other ones broke their lows. These states hit their lows. And what was interesting was they said in 2010, during the peak of the Great Recession, California, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Nevada, and North Carolina saw record high unemployment rates. And Oregon, Rhode Island, and Kansas had record unemployment rates in 2009. So you're seeing that some of those states were the same states that had record high unemployment now have record low unemployment. And like I said, it's been coming down for some time, but it's significantly come down since January of this year.
Yeah.
And that is only Trump to thank for that.
It's good stuff. Want to move on to the thing we have for science, then we'll get into some immigration?
I do. So we only have one story for science this week, but there's a company called Boom. It is a company that makes aircrafts. They are now thinking about making a plane that is even better than the Concorde. A new supersonic jet that goes 1,687 miles per hour. They said they want to have it on the market and working by 2025. All right? 7 years, Enzo. We got 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah. It looks very similar to a Concorde, but it looks very streamlined, very fresh. They said that the plane will make its first test flight next year in 2018. If it works, fly from New York to London in a little over 2 hours. Now, remember how we've talked about how Boeing and a couple other companies want to make some hypersonic planes?
Yeah.
Those ones, a lot of them said that they weren't even going to be ready until the 2030s, maybe the 2040s even. This is a company that's we're going to have this thing on the board in 7 years. Is when we want to see this thing operational. Granted, I'm looking at pictures of it right now. It looks kind of small. It might fit 75 people, 100 people max, maybe. So we're not talking about a very, very big plane. I mean, if you remember the Concorde wasn't that big. The Concorde even costs a small fortune in order to actually buy tickets for it. So if you can get a plane in today's day and age that can maybe be a little bit more affordable. Now, by more affordable, I'm not saying cheap. I mean, if you're going to fly in a plane that's going to go 1,600 miles per hour and fly you from New York to London in 2 hours, it's still probably going to cost you, like, I don't know, $1,500 a ticket, maybe $2,000 a ticket, which that sounds like a lot of money. I mean, you could fly round trip for less than that amount, all the way from New York to London. Heck, even from Texas to New York to London and back.
Yeah.
Could cost you less. But if you've got the money and you got the time, why wouldn't you do it? And if anything, I'm on board with this. I want to see this happen because, I'm a tech guy. I love this sort of stuff. Every single time I see stuff like this, I always add it to the show. But they said that the plane would be nearly 3 times as fast as regular airliners. Here's the thing. I actually misquoted myself earlier. You know what their goal is?
What?
Their goal is to get the cost the same as normal flights.
Oh.
There's only one way I can tell you that happens if you think about supply and demand factors. You know what that is?
What?
They got to have a lot of them. Going a lot. That's the only way that they're going to be able to make that cheaper. And I understand they say they want it to be the same as normal flights. That's not going to happen. It's going to be more expensive. But, what's it cost to fly to New York today? Like,
I don't actually know. I've never been there.
Maybe like $400, $500?
Probably like $300-$400 from Texas.
Okay, so let's say it's like $700. By all sense and purposes, that's pretty much the same. But for a very luxury airliner that's going to get you there in half the time, no, a third of the time, definitely worth the money to be paid. So I think that's kind of what they're aiming for.
Especially if you have to meet some sort of time deadline to get there.
Yeah,
that's where people would use this the most.
In the people who travel nationwide across the planet a lot that have time deadlines tend to be like CEOs and rich people. To them, the price of this sort of stuff doesn't even matter, It doesn't matter to them. They don't care if they have to pay $2,000 a ticket or $750 a ticket. What they care about is, I can get to New York to London in a third of the time as I normally do. And like I said, it looks similar to the Concorde. So if you can get a company that's doing that, that's great. They actually unveiled a test model of it at the Dubai Air Show, but they said that's just the test model, and the actual model they're thinking of won't be done until later. So the one test model they have only fits like 2 or 3 people in it. It looks like a fighter jet kind of. They've even got a couple of pictures that kind of compare the two. So when we say that the test model, that's the one that's going to be tested in 2018. So in terms of me, fingers crossed, I hope it works. I want it to work, and I want to fly in one of those planes by the time I turn, let's see, what am I, 22 today, 10 years from now, 2027 will be 32. I want to fly in these things by the time I'm 35 years old. By the time I have kids, by the time I start a family, I want to fly in the freaking fast airplane.
I mean, who knows? I mean, we might advance our technology for airplanes even greater by the time you're that age. This might be the norm in just 5-10 years.
There's only one way that's going to happen, and that's companies like this take the initiative to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Because if they weren't going to do it, I don't know who else would. So, I know I've kind of gone rambling on about this, but I'm really excited about that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Let's get into some immigration then.
Open the door! Immigration!
La migra, vamos, niños!
This week in immigration.
So the first thing that we have for immigration is on Thursday, Tom Homan, who's the deputy director of ICE, gave a little press conference on the success of an operation entitled Raging Bull, which was a sweep by ICE to stop gang members. They arrested 214 U.S.-based MS-13 gang members. MS-13, if you do not know, is probably the most violent Hispanic gang that exists in the United States. It's based out of El Salvador and Honduras. And there's some interesting finds from who has been arrested. One of the most really substantial things that we can glean from what has been reported is almost 1/3 of the 214 people arrested that were MS-13 gang members came here as unaccompanied alien children, which, if you do not remember, President Barack Obama had his whole unaccompanied minors thing, where if you came here to the country as a minor, you got to stay. So 1/3 of the people they arrested were here for that reason.
And I'm not going to be one to say that like 1/3 of all unaccompanied minors going to end up in gangs, but that's the type of people that MS-13 and other gangs go after, is these unaccompanied minors that are by themselves, don't really have anything, they don't really have their ways. They get them. That's what happens a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some other big raids and deportations and arrests to find out that a lot more people in these gangs are unaccompanied minors, which is why we need...
these people are dreamers.
Yes.
They would qualify as dreamers by, the definition of what we put that as. And, they're an MS-13. So, it's funny that we even have to tolerate this stuff. Looking at some other things from the results of this raid, 16 of the arrestees were U.S. citizens and 5 were illegal immigrants. The rest were all illegal aliens. 93 are charged with federal or state criminal offenses and will face prison time. 121 arrestees will be deported but will not be facing criminal charges. And one thing that was interesting is there is an entire 8-man MS-13 clique called Sailors Clique out of suburban Maryland. All of the members of that clique were arrested, and they've been linked to 3 murders.
Wow.
So, it's really good that we are identifying and going after MS-13 gang members. They're very violent. I had to write an article for a site I work for this last week on MS-13, and the violence is really bad at the moment with them. It doesn't really get reported too often, but it's good that we're going after them.
What's also important to realize is, like we said, a lot of those guys, 1/3 of them came over as unaccompanied minors, which is part of the reason why you need to build the wall to stop the flow of immigration, because unaccompanied minors are not the types that are immigrating to the United States or staying over in visa overstays. They're the types that are crossing the border, which is why you need to build the wall. Another reason why you need to build the wall is the next story that we have, where we find out that a Mexican cartel used a mobile CAT scan truck in order to move cocaine to the border. Yeah, that's true. So they moved 600 pounds of cocaine. They hid it inside medical equipment while transporting it to the border city of Reynosa in Mexico. And they hid it inside a CAT scan truck. So you'd think that, if you see an ambulance or something like that going down the road, that would be important. But this is how they operate, okay? They're hiding in plain daylight. And the reason they move that stuff to the border is to try to get it across the border. So you need to build the wall to stop the flow of drugs. And that's part of the reason why we are building the wall. They said that there were 371 bricks of cocaine that were found stashed inside several parts of the imaging equipment. They arrested 2 nurses and the truck's operator. So they were saying that they were tasked with transporting it across the border into Texas. Well, there you go. And here's my idea that I thought of. So obviously there's a lot of talk, especially in like more libertarian circles, about like ending the drug war.
Yeah.
Now, we found out here that they're using a mobile CAT scan truck, which was either stolen or probably they paid the people off. I'm assuming they paid them off since there were nurses that were there. So here's my idea, okay? We end the drug war, all right? And we then make a deal with the drug cartels. We split the profits from all the drugs they sell 50-50. And we use that money to pay for health care. What do you think?
Sounds crazy.
It sounds crazy enough to work is what it sounds like.
I'm not so sure about that.
Of course not. But
it would really undercut their market if we legalized drugs over here. They just have to sell different things.
Exactly. And the one thing they wouldn't be doing is using stolen CAT scan trucks. Because I can guarantee you that if they're sticking all their 317 something bricks of drugs in there, they're probably not using it for its intended purpose. And they're trying to get that stuff across the border via truck. So we need to expand and make sure they're not bringing this. I mean, most drugs that come into the United States are crossing the border. We know that.
Yeah.
They're either being snuck across in areas where there isn't wall, or they're being stuck across inside trucks and stuff. Now, we do a lot of surveillance and stuff of trucks that are crossing the border, searching them for drugs, but that stuff still gets over. The important thing is, though, to stop a lot of the flow is you build the wall, which segues into the next story that I know you have.
Yeah, so this week, the game Cards Against Humanity, their company that, sells the game, has bought sections of borderland on the U.S.-Mexico border to prevent Trump from building the border wall. Let me read some quotes from them. Donald Trump is a preposterous golem who is afraid of Mexicans, the game's website states, saying it intends to save the country from injustices, lies, racism, the whole enchilada. He is so afraid that he wants to build a $20 billion wall that everyone knows will accomplish nothing. So we've purchased a plot of vacant land on the border and retained a law firm specializing in eminent domain to make it as time-consuming and expensive as possible for the wall to get built. They have a little video along with it. Not going to play that. But, yeah, they think that they're saving America by trying to stall the wall being built, which is crazy. I mean, they want to make it as time-consuming and costly as possible. That's just going to cost taxpayers in the end of it.
Yeah, if anything, you should sue the company for like disrupting ongoing project or something. Even then, they're like, oh, we're going to hire a lawyer who specializes in eminent domain. Yeah, how often does that actually work? I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of eminent domain myself, but I can tell you one thing: if the government wants your land, they're gonna get your land. And even then, how much you want to bet that the plot of land they bought is in one of those areas that's not a very high priority?
Yeah.
Because as we've said, Trump has never, ever called for building a wall in every single square inch of the border. If you believe that that's what's going to happen, you're dead wrong. He has never called for that. He's even said you only need a couple of 100 miles of actual good wall in certain areas to accomplish your goal. And so, how much you want to bet, like I said, they probably bought this land for, as cheap as they possibly could. They said it's vacant land. So it's probably,
So, the website is asking people to give them $15, and they'll send them 6 American saving surprises right to your doorstep. It says they'll also give you an illustrated map of the land and a certificate of their promise to fight the wall. So this is they're trying to make money off
this.
Of
is the precise reason. They said they bought vacant land, which means it was probably they probably bought less than 10 acres, I bet you. They probably bought some tiny little piece that was insignificant, I bet you. And so they're entirely doing this as a marketing ploy. They're doing this to try to raise money. They're doing this to try to, reach out to the, if anything, the more, millennial liberals out there who are the types of people that play Cards Against Humanity. I mean, I've played before. It's an okay game. I enjoy playing it.
I played it once.
It's not the funnest thing, but I enjoy playing it. I'm not going to, say their game sucks. I'm not even going to call for a boycott of their game. Because the whole idea that they're doing is just so stupid. And here's why. Look at what they said. He's so afraid that he wants to build a $20 billion wall that everyone knows will accomplish nothing.
If you're so afraid that it's going to do nothing, why do you want to stop the wall from being built?
Yeah, if you're like, oh, I just want to... Yeah, exactly. If you think it's not going to work...
really?
Yeah, if you think it's not going to work, then just let it happen. And if you just want to make them spend more money in doing so, then you're just being an asshole is what you're doing. Not only that, it says it'll accomplish nothing. We did an entire episode on border walls across the world talking about their effectiveness.
Yeah.
We've talked about how effective a border wall would be here.
Extremely effective.
Again, either they're lying, which they might be, or they're stupid, which they probably are, or they're just making up things that they know that the millennial, SJW, left-leaning Bernie types that are the people that play Cards Against Humanity most regularly, those are the types that would believe that sort of statement. Like, oh yeah, we're going to stand up to Trump. I'll pay you $15. I want a certificate. I'm gonna hang it on my wall.
But, like, the idea that to save America, we need to make sure that the flow of illegal aliens from south of the border continues. Otherwise, we're gonna, like, collapse or something. That's just absurd. Okay, we're fine without these people coming here. They're not Americans. We'll be okay. If okay, so they have their plot of land on the border. What's stopping us from building the wall around their plot?
Exactly. You easily can.
Yeah. It's so stupid.
Or you know what you could do also? You could build the wall right up to where their plot starts, continue it on the other end, and just have heavy security watching that one open spot with giant arrows saying, come through here.
Yeah.
You know? Like Trump said, I want a big, beautiful wall with a big, beautiful gate in it. Well, instead of a gate, leave an open spot with arrows saying, if you want to cross through the border, cross here, and then just nab everyone coming through right there.
Which, I guess this goes well into the next thing that I wanted to talk about for immigration, and this is in regards to the need for the wall to be built. Mario Duarte, head of the Secretariat of Strategic Intelligence of Guatemala, had an interview with the Washington Examiner this week about how terrorists from the Middle East are coming to the United States via our southern border. Quote, there are enough indications from several intelligence organizations that, yes, they may have links. Terrorists using the same human traffickers that, illegal aliens use to come up.
And also, if you listen back to our midweek episode we did this week, we talked to Eric Burkhart, who is a former CIA spy who's running for Congress.
Yeah.
When he was working on the border, he was specifically told us that, yeah, that happens a lot. And the thing is, a lot of those guys who are like terrorists in the Middle East, they look the same as people crossing from like El Salvador and other countries south of the border here.
I know
they're
personally.
able to blend in a lot.
I know personally, like Honduras, they had a problem with this. About a year ago, they caught government officials giving passports to like 130 different Syrians, so then they can use these passports to get themselves the United States.
Yeah.
So let me read some other things that he said here. In addition to the links that these people may have with terrorist organizations, Duarte points out that the illegal documentation they carry was of high quality, a delicate issue that demonstrates the power of these societies. So yeah, it's Central American governments handing these out to Middle Eastern terrorists. As it is said, it's been shown that this happened before, and a top spy in Guatemala is coming out and saying this is happening. But, we need to save America from Trump building a wall, so let's keep our southern border open so these guys can come up. Fucking,
What we need to do is we need to build the wall and end all immigration south of the United States border. That's the only way that you're ever going to stop that problem from continuing. That's what I'm in favor of, too.
Yeah. But let's go on to the next thing we have for immigration. And that is, there's some action happening out in Boston.
You actually skipped a story.
Oh, I did?
Yeah. But we'll go to the Boston story first.
I didn't skip it.
So a lot of illegal immigrants in Boston that are Irish illegal immigrants are now fearing deportation after the arrest of a local leader. So a prominent figure in Boston's Irish community has been detained for deportation, and that's scaring people. His name was John Cunningham, a former chairman of the Gaelic Athletic Association in Boston, was arrested by ICE and could now be deported. Mayor Martin Walsh of Boston said, "This is the first time we've heard in Boston that somebody went to somebody's house to take somebody," meaning, arrested for deportation. "We haven't heard that before." He said, "There is fear out there. We try and tamper that fear down." He was detained for overstaying a 90-day visa after entering the United States in 2003. Again, most people in the United States are visa overstays. The left likes to use that as an excuse to not build a wall, but they are true. That is priority. So we need to go after these people, and thank God we actually are. They said, he lawfully entered the country but failed to depart in compliance with the terms, and is now a prominent figure of the Irish community. And so a lot of illegal immigrants in Boston are fearing deportation. They said that there's an estimated 50,000 illegal citizens from Ireland living in the United States.
I don't think it's going to be really horrible if you get deported back to Ireland so much.
No, and they said the issue of immigration was actually raised by Enda Kennedy, the then Irish Prime Minister, when he visited the White House in March. And I'll read a quote he said. This was when he was talking to the president on people living in the U.S. illegally. "We would like this to be sorted. It would remove a burden of so many people that when they stand here, or that they can stand out in the light and say, 'Now I am free to contribute to America as I know I can,' and that's what people want." So he's admitting here that he wants the illegals to be able to stay in the United States to quote-unquote contribute to
Here's
America.
the thing, we don't care about your desire to contribute.
Yeah.
If you're here illegally, you just get to go back. That's
have
the
to
rules.
go back. I don't care if you got to go back to Mexico. I don't care if you got to go back to Syria. I don't care if you got to go back to Ireland.
You gotta
You
go
got to
back.
go back. So, they say, oh, they're living in fear now that one of their leaders was arrested.
You
and gonna
should
get deported.
fear being deported. You're here illegally. I mean, I'm sorry. That's how these things work. Every country that takes these things seriously behaves this way. And we're
Precisely.
finally doing this. And they expect us not to take this seriously.
And you know what? The reason I really wanted to bring up the story is because they like to think that, oh, Trump's immigration policies are like racist. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? Irish people are white. Irish people are from Europe. And they're getting deported too, okay?
Yeah.
And we arrested this guy for being a visa overstay. We're arresting everybody who's a visa overstay. Because if you overstay your visa, I don't care who you are, I don't care what you look like, I don't care where you're from, you got to go back.
Yeah. Now, I see what I skipped over. I got the last two stories for immigration. Do you want me to do the infuriating story, and then the story about ICE, or the story about ICE, and then the infuriating story?
Do the, I'll leave it up to you.
Okay. I'll leave the infuriation for last then.
Okay.
So, ICE officials the ICE union is saying that Obama holdovers are sabotaging immigration enforcement. Representatives from immigration officers say that President Trump has betrayed them by not weeding out the holdovers from the Obama administration. Quote, ICE officers grudgingly admit that the only president they ever endorsed hasn't kept his word, and many officers now feel betrayed, said National ICE Council. While officers view the president's position on enforcement as courageous, the Trump administration has left all of the Obama managers and leadership in place. They continue, tensions are on the rise between Trump's army of Obama holdovers. So they started a new website called JIC Report, which allows people in ICE to whistleblow on how their managing officers in ICE are upholding the things, and they have a couple of different examples of ways that they're kind of sabotaging their efforts. I'm going to read two of them. In Philadelphia, ICE agents were instructed by an official not to wear bulletproof vests in a dangerous neighborhood out of concern that it would offend residents. National Association of Former Border Patrol Officers David Ward calls that insanity and said whichever manager made that decision should be removed for incompetency. He said it will take the time for the Trump administration to weed out Obama holdovers committed to the globalism which brought us sanctuary cities and the lack of enforcement of immigration laws. And I got another one here. Officers in one Utah city are required to give city officials 7 days heads up before arresting anyone. And by the time they go to make the arrest, the immigrants they are targeting have taken off, the website says. So, you can look on the website. They have more examples than that, but those are just two little ways that officials from, the Obama administration that are holdovers in ICE are screwing up what we're trying to work on right now. And it's no good, and Trump's not doing a good job on this.
Well, even then, they said, is this an anti-Trump effort? But the JIC website specifically denies that, saying this is not an anti-Trump website. ICE endorsed President Trump. They said it is, however, their only means of correcting an agency that is grossly mismanaged and has no outside oversight. So what really needs to happen is, Trump does need to step up his game and fire the freaking Obama holdovers that are in there. Because the regular ICE agents, they love Trump. They love what they're doing. They love doing their job. What they
voted
don't like
for him for a reason because they want to do their job, but they're still not allowed to do their job the way they want to.
Precisely, and that's exactly what they need to do. They need to be able to do their job.
Yeah.
They need to be able to round these people up. They need to be able to deport them. They can't do that with Obama holdovers. And that's one of my biggest criticisms of Trump is day one, every single person that worked in the Obama administration should have been fired, given a pink slip, say you're out, or you got 7 days, you're gone.
Now, Thomas Homan, who's the current Secretary Deputy of ICE, who was from the Obama administration, he's done a good job himself, and I think
why
he's
isn't he
fine.
doing anything? He's got power to fire people that work for ICE. So I blame him too. I don't want to put all the blame on Trump because it's not his fault. If anything, it is Homan's fault. It really is. He's the one who has power over that sort of stuff. Trump's got bigger things to worry about than a couple of mid-level people working for ICE. He really does. He's the one setting the policy. People aren't obeying it. That's not his problem. It's Homan's problem. Homan needs to step up his game. Trump's doing perfectly fine.
Yeah, so things out of ICE aren't as good as they should be. I'll go into the last story for immigration, and this is a very infuriating story. So, this happened out in Milwaukee. A man has been charged with impregnating a minor because he thought paternity determination would block his deportation. The man's name is Horace Alvarado.
Horatio Alvarado.
Horatio Alvarado. He impregnated the mother of his stepdaughter, who is only 15. He is now facing 3 felonies of what investigators say were several years of sustained sexual assaults his wife later knew about, yet did nothing to prevent, according to the complaint. So, because they have the idea that you have a child here, you get to stay in the country, this guy raped a 15-year-old girl who's an American citizen. His stepdaughter, so he could try to stay here. Not sending their best.
In the fact that she got pregnant, him using that as an excuse to be like, well, she's pregnant with my baby. Dude, she's 15 years old. And apparently they said when she was even 17, she told the police that her mother walked in on him raping her as they were there. She sat down and spoke with her husband in Spanish, but he didn't even talk to her. And then the assaults continued. So I don't want to say, what's her mother doing here? If she's allowing this man to continue to rape her daughter. The mother knew it. She was aware that it was happening. She walked in on it. She talked to him about it, and it continued. What the hell? Seriously.
So yeah, kind of crazy stuff out there. They're rapists.
I mean, they are. Trump's not wrong.
But yeah, really messed up stuff. Let's go into some election news where we can also be mad about stuff, I guess.
I guess we can be mad about it. We can be mad at the left is what we can be mad at.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're finally at the part where we talked about, we are now going to be talking about the entire Roy Moore situation. So, we've got a lot of things here. We're not really going to go precisely in order, but the one thing I do want to say is, starting off, there have been rumors out there that Steve Bannon was going to not stand by Roy Moore's side. Those were completely false. Bannon has actually come out and he said, yeah, I'm sticking by Roy Moore 100%. So if you saw any rumors out there that, Steve Bannon is going to drop his support, that is false. Also, I believe they said it's the, I think it was, who is it? The governor of Alabama, who's a female Republican governor. She's standing by Roy Moore's side. She said she's going to continue to vote for him. The Republican Party of Alabama is standing by Roy Moore's side. So, all the people that really matter, they're the ones standing by Roy Moore's side. And they should, because Roy Moore did nothing wrong. Okay?
So I think maybe we should go into some of the different accusations that have been debunked this week already.
Yeah.
So I guess the first one that we can go into is the yearbook.
Yeah. So Gloria Allred, everyone's favorite Gloria Allred. You know who Gloria Allred is, right?
Yeah.
You want to describe to the audience who she is if they don't know who she is?
She is like a prosecutor that works with a lot of Democratic causes.
Pretty much anytime she's involved with something, you know it's got to be bogus. Her daughter is Lisa Bloom, who I think represented didn't she represent Anthony Weiner or something like that.
I don't
no,
know.
she represented Harvey Weinstein, I believe.
Hmm.
Either way, like all these people they're terrible people. But she had well, I should first go say there's a woman who came out as an accuser of Roy Moore. Her name is Beverly Nelson, and she said that when she was 16, she had a sexual relationship with Roy Moore. Now, keep in mind the age of consent in Alabama is 16 years old. Seems kind of low, but as long as it was consensual, you can't say anything. Roy Moore didn't do anything, even if he did actually do it.
She's not even accusing him of a crime,
and she's not. But she's saying, oh, I had relations with him. Here's a yearbook to prove it. She holds up the yearbook, which has a thing that said on it. I want to see if I can find a picture of the yearbook as they're doing it. But anyways, so she holds the yearbook up to the camera, and this was, I believe, on CNN is when they did it. They haven't released any other pictures, so the only picture of the yearbook that we have is the one that was like, the zoomed in picture that they had on CNN, right? Well, here's the problem with that picture, okay? It doesn't even look like Roy Moore's signature. And I'm trying to bring up a picture, but my computer's acting really, really slow. So, okay, I brought it up. So it says, to an even sweeter and more beautiful girl, it says, to a sweeter, more beautiful girl could not say Merry Christmas more. I don't know. I can't read this freaking handwriting. Either way, it says, Merry Christmas, and then it says Christmas 1977, love Roy Moore DA, 122277 Old Hickory House. Here's why this stuff doesn't make any sense. Everything up to the word Roy is in like a dark blue ink. The words Moore DA, 122277 Old Hickory House is a different color ink, okay? You have two different colors of ink. Also, the handwriting is different than the handwriting before. All right, the handwriting before is all in cursive. It looks very kind of spidery, very like wide sort of. But then everything else is very like neat, defined. It's clear. Why in the world was someone signing a yearbook in Christmas when people get their yearbooks in like May? Okay, that doesn't make any sense, does it?
Yeah.
So even if the first part of the message was true, okay, someone signs this yearbook Christmas 77. Why would someone write Merry Christmas and then under it write Christmas 77 and then under that write 122277? Why would someone write that 3 times? That doesn't make any sense.
Because he wants, incriminate himself 40 years down the
Precisely.
line.
Here's the thing also. The handwriting is completely different.
Yeah.
Not only did I say it was spotchy, the 7s in 77 and the 7s in 122277 underneath are completely different types of 7s. All right? When people were signing stuff, yeah, some letters and some numbers might look different, but even then, they're not going to look completely different than something you'd written before. All right? So what my personal belief is, I completely think this is fake. Most people do believe this is totally bogus and totally fake. Very few people actually believe this thing is legitimate.
Yeah.
So my belief is that she probably got it signed by someone named Ray. Because if you look at the name, it doesn't look like it says Roy. It looks like Ray. The O's are different. The way that the kind of swirly top comes off connecting to the next letter, coming off of the O, looks like it's coming off as an A, then O in cursive. It looks like she probably got it signed by someone named Ray, but it looks close enough. Then they just added more DA 1977. And the thing is, Christmas of 77.
And why would he put DA on that?
He wasn't even the DA. He was the deputy DA, so it should be DDA.
Yeah.
So, even then, okay, fine.
So he
Besides
wrote
DA,
it knowing he'd be the future DA.
Yeah. Or even if he signs a DA to make himself look better than it was, then why would he sign it saying the location where he was at? Because they were at, a restaurant at the time.
Yeah.
Where I believe she was a waitress. Why would he sign the location where they were at?
That's just weird.
Have you ever had anyone, when you signed yearbooks in high school, did they ever write the date or the location where they signed it?
Neither of those things.
All they say is a message and a name.
Yeah, they're just like, hope you have a good summer.
Yeah. Or
definitely not saying, hope you have a good Christmas.
Well, even if it was signing Christmas, I can understand Merry Christmas. But then, why then say Merry Christmas, Christmas 77, 12/22/77? That doesn't make any sense.
Assuming you even get yearbooks around Christmas, it would be Merry Christmas from Roy Moore.
Yeah.
not what's written down there. And, like, you know, the whole thing with the two different inks, like, the ink on the first one's not going out, so why would there be another pen? It would make sense if his pen was going out and he grabbed another one, but it wasn't.
You can tell when something is written with a pen that's running out of ink and then it switches over to a new pen. You can tell.
But it's solid on the first ink.
It's solid. So I believe that part of the message was written in 1977. I firmly believe that. Someone did sign the yearbook.
Yeah.
But everything that's afterwards, that's a different color ink, that is not. And even then, Gloria Allred is being interviewed on MSNBC. And they asked her about the yearbook. And she refused to let it be looked at by handwriting experts. And Roy Moore has come out and said, that's not my signature. Okay? So Gloria Allred herself, you'd think that if she was that 100% certain that was Roy Moore's signature, she would let everyone look at it to verify that's his, because otherwise your story blows up. All right? And not only that, the woman who claims that it was her yearbook, who claims that she had some sort of relationship with him back then, she says that she never saw him again. Well, that's a complete lie. Because in 1997, 20 years after this thing got signed, or maybe 1998, 1997-98, she got divorced. You know who was the person that was there overseeing the divorce?
Roy Moore.
It was Roy Moore. So when she's saying, I never had contact with him after he signed the yearbook, that's complete bogus as well. She did have contact, unless she completely forgot her divorce. People don't forget their divorce. They don't forget the people involved in their divorce. So not only that, she's proven to be lying at least once. The fact that Gloria Allred is involved proves that she's probably lying again. I wouldn't be surprised if she's being paid by this. I'd like to see these people's bank records every time they come out and make an accusation. And even then, she's never saying she actually did anything with him wrong. The entire thing that this story of Roy Moore stems from is the fact that what he was doing was he was quote-unquote dating younger girls. All right? Here's why that's okay. All right? When he was in his early 30s, what he wanted to do, and keep in mind he comes from a very conservative Christian background, what he wanted to do was he wanted to marry someone who was of legal age, so at least, 16 or above. He was interviewing 16, 17-year-old girls. He even talked to their parents and got their parents' permission, all right? And a lot of the parents were on board with it. They liked it. You know why? Because he was the DA. He was a man who was older, who was established, who was a good man, who they knew would make a very good husband for their daughters. What he was doing was he was quote-unquote interviewing them. He wasn't having sex with them. He wasn't groping them.
He was just seeing if they'd be a good wife.
He would literally take them out to a movie and just talk to them. Take them out to dinner and talk to them. He never had sexual relations.
And
at most, they're claiming that he kissed them goodnight at the end. And even then, that was consensual. Okay?
And this is how he ended up getting his own wife.
And his wife, his current wife, is sticking by him.
Yeah.
She's not even saying he did anything wrong.
So I have another, fake news allegation we can dispel as well.
Yeah.
So have you seen the stuff about saying, the Gadsden Mall in Alabama banned him because he was a sexual predator at the mall? So a former manager of the Gadsden Mall in Alabama, Barnes Boyle, who was a manager from 1981 to 1996, and he also plans to vote for Roy Moore, says that he would have documentation if such incidents were happening, and if he was banned, which he said he didn't have any his entire time that he was there on Roy Moore at all, and he says that the mall wouldn't have any paperwork able to prove that the ban even exists. So this entire idea that he was, going to malls seeking to predatorily go after teenage women, right there, that's another allegation completely demystified.
And there was another woman who came out and said, Roy Moore, touched my butt. That one sounds kind of weird. And she said she was 14 years old at the time that he touched her butt, which that would be a bad thing if it happened. Here's why I don't believe it happened. She said her mother was there with her at the time. Okay? If someone touches your butt and your mother is in the room with you, you're going to tell your mom, hey, someone touched my butt. Or your mom's going to see it happen, in which case she's going to scold whoever did it. Or later on, you're going to say, that guy touched my butt. The last thing you're going to do is pretend like it didn't happen, and 40 years later say it happened. Okay? So that woman, who I also believe is lying, because you know why? She's been convicted of check fraud in the past. So this is someone who has a past convicted history of lies. those types of people, their character is discredited when they come out. So even her, like, I know she's looking for 15 minutes of fame. That's what all these women are doing.
Well, do you want to go also into Beverly Young Nelson's accusation?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was talking about. She's the yearbook woman.
Oh.
Her stepson, okay? Her stepson has made multiple Facebook Live videos saying that his mother is lying and he knows that she's lying and doing that just for attention or fame or whatever.
Or money.
Yeah, or money. So even then, her own stepson is coming out saying, yeah, this woman is lying to you people. And apparently he said that she's actually called him, asked him to take the videos down, which is why he made even more videos about it. So, like, that is something there.
But it's part of, like, something we've been actually seeing a lot is, like, as Roy Moore has been getting attacked, his support actually grows stronger.
Yes, and we actually have evidence of that. They said that his fundraising numbers are up since the accusations. They said in the last 2.5 days, the last 48 to, 60 hours or so, since, like, the yearbook photo came out, his campaign has raised $5 million. They've raised almost $1 million a day since these allegations first started to come out. That would not be the case if people were abandoning him. Now, I know there's some fake news that we covered last week, I believe, about, was it the National Republican, like, fundraising wing or whatever of the Senate or something like that?
Yeah,
you know
the
what I'm talking
RNC said that they were not giving him they were pulling their funding from him. But the thing is, he's never received any funding from the RNC.
Yeah, so it looks like, oh, they're pulling their funding, but, like, they never, yeah, you're right. So that's one of those things that, like, the headline makes it seem worse than it actually is.
They're just trying to make it look like, oh, there's a big backlash against him, even though the only backlash is from the establishment Republicans that just don't want Roy Moore to begin with.
And here,
because you think about it, okay, Roy Moore ran against Luther Strange. Mitch McConnell and his PACs put $30 million behind Luther Strange, and he lost. So at this point, they're going so hard after Roy Moore, and they've said, like, oh, he needs to step down. At this point, they would rather the Democrat win than Roy Moore get in because he's a Trump Republican, so he's going to vote hardline on immigration things.
And you know what? Here's the thing. Most normal, like, everyday Republicans, they understand what's going on. They know that whether or not they believe that these accusations are true, they know that this stuff is coming out, Think about this. Roy Moore has been a guy who's been in several closely contested elections throughout his history. He's been in public office for like 40-something years. And you're telling me that 1 month before the most important election of his career, the most important Senate election probably in Alabama's last 50 or 60 years, that nothing came out when he was running for any other office. Nothing came out when he was running for judge to be on the Alabama Supreme Court. Nothing came out when he was in the news back about a decade ago when they had the Ten Commandments thing, which was, big national news. Nothing came out then. Nothing came out even in the primaries when he was running against Luther Strange. In fact, they said that Luther Strange's people were aware of these allegations. They looked into it to try to legitimize them before they could use it against him, and they couldn't even come up with anything. Even their own people, Luther Strange's people, couldn't verify that any of this stuff was accurate, and so they decided not to pursue it.
Yeah. So,
like, exactly. So it's all complete stupid. They're obviously using this as a political hit job, and that's what I was trying to get to.
So let me clarify the narrative that I was presenting. So the reason why Mitch McConnell really wants Roy Moore to lose is because then it shows that you can't take out the incumbent Republican in a primary and win the general election.
Right.
If they can prove with Roy Moore that you can take out the incumbent, Luther Strange, and then go on to win the seat, that's going to be bad for a lot of establishment Republicans come these primaries in 2018. That's a precedent they don't want to set. They want to show that Trumpism is a losing strategy. And to prove that it's a losing strategy, you need Roy Moore to lose his election.
And there's been so much media gaslighting with polls showing that, like, Doug Jones is winning. There was a poll that came out that said, like, Doug Jones is up by 12. Okay, Alabama's like a R+12 state. All right? So there was a Fox News poll that came out that showed that Doug Jones was beating Roy Moore by 4 points. the internals of that poll were so screwy. It was like a D+3 or something poll. In Alabama, a D+ anything poll showing him up. Not only that, in the same poll, it showed Trump losing to Hillary by 3 points. All right, we talked about a while back. There was a Fox News poll that had them tied. Now, this is before the allegations came out. There was a Fox News, I just got to say, like, as much as I like their outlet, their polling sucks. It's terrible. But that being said, they came out with a poll that showed that it was tied in the race. It also showed that Trump's approval rating in Alabama was only 45%. Trump's in the high 50s to low 60s in Alabama no matter what. Okay, like, that's one of the reddest states you can get. There's no way his support's less than 50% in that state. And even when we talked about how there's the ABC affiliate who walked around Alabama trying to find a single person who believed the allegations, not one person they could find believed the allegations. And this is the point I was trying to get to a few minutes ago. Everyday normal Republicans understand that this is a political hit job on Roy Moore. They understand that it's Mitch McConnell and the left that are using this to try to dethrone or destroy Roy Moore. They completely understand that. And so them thinking, oh, we're going to use this as a referendum against Trump. We're going to use this to show that, Trumpism fails, or that Bannon's idea of going against the establishment candidates is going to lose your elections. Absolutely not. If that was the case, you'd find lots of people that agreed with it and said, yeah, I believe these things. You would see his fundraising numbers decline. You wouldn't have to see extremely biased polls out there showing he's losing. What you'd see is him lose. He's going to win this election. Now, I predicted he would win by 12 to 15. I'm even going to say that I think this does damage him and he wins by less than 10%, in the 6 to 10 range. I'll even go so far as to say that. But what I really think is going to happen is, because so many regular people understand that this is a hit job, they understand that McConnell and the left is behind this. What it's really going to end up doing is, after Roy Moore wins, and he's going to win this election, they're going to double down. And that means our people, the Bannon types, the Trump Republicans, are going to double down saying, fine, you tried to do this to our other candidate. We are going to destroy you in the midterms. We're going to absolutely destroy you. We're going to suffocate you. We're going to, yeah, lots of I'm talking about the midterms, the primaries. We're going to destroy you. We're going to unseat your people because you don't deserve anything. We're going to make sure the people that we elect are ones who are going to remove you from power so that shit like this doesn't continue and you falsely accuse people of anything. And like I said, ever since the stuff about Al Franken came out where there's actual evidence, the Roy Moore talk has almost been completely gone off the radar.
Yeah, and, we got some poll numbers on the race right now, which, you can take poll numbers for what they are. This is a new poll out of Fox 10 News. They still have more up, 49 to 43. So, he's only dropped from previous polls where he had 40 or 52%. He's only dropped 3 points since these allegations have come out. Most people don't care. Looking at some other things from this poll, many voters also insist that the allegations against Moore did not affect their vote at all. 36% said they intend to vote for Moore no matter what the accusers say. Even more to the point, 35% said the media hysteria made them want to vote for the Republican even more. Only 11% said the allegations made them less likely to vote for Roy Moore.
And I like that number that you brought up there, the 11%, okay? In the Republican primary in Alabama, Roy Moore and Luther Strange together got 240,000 votes. In the Democrat primary, Doug Jones only got 80,000 votes, or 84,000 votes. All right. So think about the math there. If 50% of Republicans that voted in the primary, now keep in mind, general elections or special elections have higher turnout than the primaries do. If 50% of Republican voters said, you know what, I'm not going to show up. I don't like it. I'm just going to leave. You still win with 120,000 to 80,000, all right? If you had and that would mean every single Democrat's got to turn out as well. If 11% of those people, which, the other people said either it doesn't affect their vote or makes them want to vote for it more. If 11% of those people say it makes them less likely to vote, okay, fine. You're looking at only 11 to maybe 15% of people that are not going to vote that voted before, that were supporters of him. A 10 to 15%, that's like what? Maybe 24,000 votes? You still get 200,000 to 80,000. You would have to get 1/3 of Republican voters. That would bring you from 240,000 down to 16,000. And if you add the 80,000 that Doug Jones got in the Democrat primary to the 80,000 that's the 1/3 of 24, that's when you lose. And even then, it's tied. You'd have to have every single Democrat show up and 1/3 of Republican voters switch over to the other side.
Which they're not going to do that, even if they're mad. They'll just stay home.
And keep in mind this. Exactly. They're not going to switch over. Because think about this. If all this stuff looks bad for a Republican, Alabama's a super, super conservative, like Christian Bible Belt state. The last thing they're going to do is abandon their guy to vote for an abortion-supporting Democrat who doesn't stand up for anything that they believe in.
Yeah.
That's not what they're going to do. If anything, they'll just not show up to vote. But even then, most Republicans polled, there was it like 35% or something like that?
35% said they're more likely to vote
for it.
no.
I know that's not a majority, but if 1/3 of Republicans are more likely, that defeats the left's narrative. So yeah, Roy Moore is going to win this thing, and it doesn't matter how much
Because what
money
it really
they throw
shows people is, like, if the fake news and the political establishment really hate this guy, there must be a real reason for me to like this guy. Just like we saw with Donald Trump back, during the presidential election. And, I think just like Donald Trump, at the end of the day, Roy Moore is going to sit through all of these allegations, and he's always doubled down saying, no, I'm innocent, I'm okay, I'm going to, stand through all the firestorm, and he's still going to win. And, they're trying to will themselves into a victory for the left, using the media, and they're trying to use the political establishment, both on the left and the right. But I think at the end of the day, it's just not going to win. And we're going to see the result, in a couple of weeks here, and I think we're going to like what we're going to see.
Well, here's why we're not going to like what we're going to see. Because they're going to try to throw him out of the Senate if he does win.
Yeah.
And I mean, they talked about having like the House Ethics Committee go after him.
Yeah, GOP
I'm sorry, not the House,
Senator,
the Senate Ethics Committee.
Yeah, GOP Senator Cory Gardner from Colorado has called for the Senate to expel Moore even if he is elected.
And here's the thing I hate about this. So they're saying, I think he said, he said Roy Moore does not meet the ethical and moral requirements to serve as a senator. Where's your statement about freaking Al Franken?
What about
Nothing.
Bob Menendez?
Or Bob Menendez?
So we didn't bring this up this week, but he got off on mistrial this week.
Yeah.
And he was accused of paying for underage prostitutes.
Yeah.
If allegations are enough to keep Roy Moore out, why aren't allegations enough to take these guys out of the Senate?
Yeah. And even then, here's the thing. The Senate Ethics Committee is supposed to deal with things that happen while you're a senator.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to deal with things that happened 40 years ago, or even in Al Franken's case, 11 years ago in 2006. I'll even be the first person to raise my hand and say the Senate Ethics Committee shouldn't even touch the Al Franken case.
Yeah.
Because it happened before he was a senator. I'm being fair to both sides here. But that being said, I think Bob Menendez is while he was a senator, right?
Yeah.
So you'd think they'd go after him.
But they're
Or
not.
here's the thing. The Senate Ethics Committee, the last time that they've actually removed anybody from the Senate for violations of whatever causes, 1862. All right? I looked this stuff up myself.
Yeah.
The last time they did that was 1862. You know why? They expelled a couple of senators because they supported the Confederate rebellion movement. And that was the last time they did it. But, Roy Moore has accusations that we have at least two people that are, one person who's most likely, both people actually proven that they're lying. Because, the yearbook lady lied about the divorce thing. The other lady's got check fraud. So two people, every other person that's come out, they've forgotten about those people because they never said they did anything wrong. The only two people have actual bad looking things.
Yeah.
One has a forgery of evidence and is lying, and the other one has a history of lying.
The majority of people have come out have all just said that they dated Roy Moore when they were in their teens, but of those people that have said that, they've all said they were 16 or 17 years old. You might not personally, like the idea of a guy dating someone that age, but he wasn't committing a crime.
It wasn't illegal.
He wasn't even engaged in sexual relations with any of them. And, you think about it, Roy Moore, conservative Christian, he's against premarital sex.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason why he wanted these women. He wanted to find younger girls that were virgins,
Yeah.
that had come from good families. I mean, And, you know, like I said, the mothers even contacted Roy Moore because they wanted him to be with their daughter. They wanted to make sure that their daughter didn't end up with some, like, trailer trash type person. They wanted someone with an established career who was a good man, who believed the same things they believe, who was a conservative Christian. It goes against everything he believes in to try to touch or rape any of these girls.
And, like, he didn't need to.
Yeah.
This guy was very successful. He had the ability to date around as much as he wanted. To what need does he have to, like, force himself upon women?
And even then, over a dozen women who knew him have come forward personally to express their support and speak out about his good character. And that includes former girlfriends, former employees, and childhood friends that Roy Moore has. Over a dozen of them, all women, have come forward and said, I stand with Roy Moore. He did nothing wrong. I am on his side here. That would not be the case. And these are people that personally knew him closely, not people that, he took me out to dinner to see, to talk to me when I was 16 or 17 years old, maybe kissed me goodnight and then said goodbye. That's nothing of this even sixpence. They even had a Women for More rally that took place outside of the Alabama state capitol last week. And it had like 100 people show up. So even then, like we said, he's gonna win this election. Most regular everyday Americans know that this is a completely political hit job on him and that these people are probably making it up or lying, or even if they believe it, they know
just don't want a Trump Republican senator wielding power.
Exactly.
That's all that matters at the end of the day. They don't care to what extent they use to defame him to try and prevent that, because at the end of the day, they're all about keeping us out of power, because he actually threatens the establishment and politics as usual. You add this guy to the Senate, we currently have the 2 Republican, margin, but, then you have to remember John McCain's considered a Republican. This guy, he can make, John McCain's dissenter vote irrelevant. And that's what they're afraid of.
And you know what? This should be afraid, because I'm kind of done talking about Roy Moore here, and I want to move on to the next story.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about pro-Trump people, if you're in the 18th District of Pennsylvania, you should be happy. You know why? Because a Trump Republican just won in the primary for that district. This was to replace Representative Tim Murphy, because remember, he resigned because of like an abortion scandal.
Yeah.
But they said that he will go on to the special election, which happens March 13th. So they held the Republican primary, and he won. His name is Rick Saccone, or Saccone, however you want to pronounce that. He self-characterizes himself as a, quote, Trump Republican before Trump. And he's pretty much running to try to say he wants to defeat the GOP establishment. And he says that he has long tried to advance the issues that Donald Trump has nationalized, including major changes in international trade such as NAFTA, a hard lighter on immigration. He actually says he fell out of his chair when Trump said he'd build the wall on the Mexican border because he wanted it for years, and also a strong effort to deal with North Korea. Now, he, let's see. Saccone won 123 votes to 91. I'm guessing that was including votes here. But, yeah, here's the thing. That's a very Republican district.
Yeah.
A super Republican district. So this guy is going to win that election. So we're going to have a very, very pro-Trump Republican.
He's going to the House.
Who's going to go to the House. So where's your concern?
And him amongst many others are going to be going to the House come next year.
Yes, and we're going to make big gains here on the midterm. So where's the outrage over this guy? Where's the women coming forward saying this guy groped them 20 years ago? The guy's 59 years old. So, yeah, Ron Moore, he's like in his 80s or something like that.
He's 70.
So, 70s. So, like, okay, maybe not 40 years. Where's the people coming out and this guy's saying 20 years ago he raped me. 20 years ago he groped me. 20 years ago he took me out for dinner and then said goodnight. Where are those accusations? There are none.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But so that guy's going to win. The special election is in March when he runs against the Democrat. So we'll see what that happens.
He'll probably win.
He's going to win. So
let's move on to the bomb the stack. We got 3 things for current college craziness, and you have the first thing here.
I do. So you remember Fusion GPS, right?
Yes.
The firm behind the
Trump dossier.
The Trump dossier. Well, apparently, rumors that people had have actually come true. The co-founder of the firm behind the dossier told the House of Representatives, some investigators from the House, I should say, actually, he told them that he personally discussed with members of the media the allegations of the Trump-Russia collusion through the dossier, but he never spoke to the sources behind the dossier claims. His name was Glenn Simpson. He refused to answer questions during his 7-hour closed-door appearance before the House Intelligence Committee. He said he would not answer questions on his relationship with specific journalists or ties to the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign, which financed the anti-Trump firm via the law firm Perkins Coie. So, the source said that Simpson acknowledged that he did not personally look into certain aspects of the dossier. So pretty much, yeah, he told the media all about it, but he never researched to look into whether or not the sources were actually true. And this was the guy that financed and funded the thing. And he wouldn't answer any other questions about any potential ties to DNC and whatnot. Which is what we talked about, I think, last week or the week before, how the Clinton campaign had that law firm that worked with Fusion GPS and all that sort of stuff. So not good. If you're going to publish something like that, you want to make sure your sources are good and that your claims are actually accurate.
Especially since this is the dossier that brought about the Trump-Russia investigation to begin with.
Yeah, that's the reason why they got those FISA warrants.
Yeah.
That's the reason why they that's the reason why they were able to get permission to wiretap Trump's campaign, was because of this thing. And now we find out that the guy who was not the guy behind it, but the guy whose firm pretty much, financed it and supported it, told everyone in the media about it, but never looked into the claims himself. That's bad journalism.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next thing that we have here. There was a study out of the Center for Responsible Politics in regards to who are the richest members of Congress. And, it's a common smear that Republicans are the party of the rich. But the funny results of the study is, of the top 10 richest members of Congress, 7 are actually Democrats. I'm going to go down the list. So, the richest person in Congress is Representative Darrell Issa from California. He's a Republican. But then you go along the line, the next 3, Representative Jared Polis from Colorado, Senator Mark Warner from Virginia, and Representative John Delaney from Maryland. The next 3 are Republicans, are Democrats. And then the next one, number 5, Representative Dave Trout. He's a Republican from Trot. He's from Michigan. Then you have Representative Vernon Buchanan, Republican from Florida. And then in number 7, you have Nancy Pelosi, Democrat from California, which, we were talking with Eric Burkhart on Wednesday. He's telling us, if there's anyone who's made a lot of money through politics, it's Nancy Pelosi. She has a net worth of $100 million as a congressman. Funny. And, that's her full-time employment. And then you have in number 8, Representative Scott Peters, Democrat from California. And then number 9, Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat from Connecticut. And then lastly, you have Senator Dianne Feinstein from California.
Yeah, 4 of those 10 are from California.
Yeah, so 7 of the 10 richest members of Congress are Democrats. But the Republicans are the party of rich people, apparently. Funny how that goes. Let's move on to the last thing that we have for other news, and then we'll get into some current year college craziness. So, Texas Senator John Cornyn says that he is ready to pursue gun control with a friend, his colleague from Connecticut.
That's Chris Murphy, Senator Chris Murphy.
There are 2 senators from Connecticut that are both Democrats, Senator Chris Murphy and Senator Richard Blumenthal, both Democrats, both very, pro-gun control. So it could be either one of them. But, not good stuff.
No.
Texas Republican Senator John Cornyn says that he's looking to, work on some gun control legislation. recently this week, Senator Chris Murphy, who we just mentioned, hinted that a bipartisan breakthrough on gun legislation is super close. So that's probably referring to what Cornyn is talking about right now. So not good stuff. I just wanted to bring it up to make light that, yeah, we're being screwed right now by people that shouldn't be screwing us.
Yeah, and John Cornyn, you'd think that a Republican senator from Texas would be not the type that would support any sort of gun legislation, right? Well, think again, because apparently that's going on. And why are they wasting their time with gun anything when they got tax reform to deal with? Because it's obviously happening in the Senate since they're senators. So it's like, what? And you know what? John Cornyn is next up for re-election in 2020, okay?
Yeah.
If they actually do anything gun-related, he is not going to win re-election. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah.
Especially in Texas. So, yeah, good luck. Good luck trying to get re-elected in Texas after you say, guess what, everyone? I signed gun control legislation. That being said, I don't think that would pass. I know they say, oh, it's bipartisan. Yeah, because probably you're the only Republican on board with it. That'll make it bipartisan. I don't think it'll pass. But it's going to definitely look bad if he does anything supporting it.
Yeah. Let's move on to some current year college craziness now.
The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic. You're fucking a white male!
The assumption that women are naturally better caregivers is part of patriarchy.
Die, cis, scum.
You will not divide us! You will not divide us! You will not divide us! You will not divide us!
It's time for some current year college craziness.
Current year college craziness, a segment of the show that keeps on giving every single week. Every single week we go over the crazy stuff that's happening on college campuses. But this week we don't have too much, really.
Yeah, I've only got 2 stories.
I'm usually the one that finds most of them, and it wasn't too crazy. But I wanted to go over, this first story because it is a crazy thing that is happening on college campuses, but it's something that's been happening to college campuses. And that is currently, earlier this week, the House Judiciary Committee held a hearing on the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which, if violated, would withhold federal financial assistance to colleges and universities which tolerate criticism of Israel. The bill has already been passed by the Senate. So this is something the government's doing. If you criticize Israel at all on campus, and this bill passes, which, there's a good chance that it might, they're going to, withhold federal funding to the college just because you want to criticize Israel.
I'm okay with withholding federal funding from colleges because I don't think these colleges should be funded. So, in that regard, I guess that's all right.
No, but this is fucking terrible.
It is terrible.
Is criminalizing freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm. God. And what's worse is this thing is probably going to pass, too, like you said. Anytime you have any type of legislation dealing with Israel, it bipartisan 99-1 votes sometimes.
Yeah, it's already gone through the Senate.
So it's like, unfortunately, this thing probably will pass, and, God, I don't even know what to say, dude.
It's really messed up the stuff that's been happening in regards to, Israel lately. There's already been the, fighting against the ability to, boycott and divest from Israel. Like in Texas, if you want government contract dollars, you have to guarantee that you will never boycott Israel.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah. So now, if you just want to, protest, Israeli occupation of Palestinian territory, or, they're continuing to build more settlements in Palestinian territory, that can get your college defunded. Just for that reason. Just because you're speaking up about it. It's insane. And I'm not a big supporter of Israel. I'm very critical of the things they do. And, yeah. The government's trying to outlaw that pretty much.
I'd be very interested to see how that let's say that does get passed, and someone's probably going to immediately file some lawsuit on it. I would wonder how far it would go, and if it made it to the Supreme Court, I wonder how they would vote, because I can see that going either way, honestly. I really can. But,
It's
I don't
crazy.
know. It's terrible.
But yeah, we can go into the other story for current year college craziness. Really
I
wasn't
saw this one. This one's pretty neat.
really wasn't a lot of stuff this week, but this other story that we have, this is out of UW La Crosse, which I know people that go to that school personally. Their leader of their college Democrats, who interned on the Hillary Clinton 2016 campaign, had to resign on Tuesday after tweeting, "I fucking hate white men." The student Sarah Simrad also was in trouble for tweeting another thing, quote, "My new bit is tearing down all of the pro-life Christian pregnancy resource center flyers that they put up around campus to try and trick people."
Now talk about destroying free speech.
Yeah. So, she's apologized for her tweets now. I'll read her quotes. "In a moment of impulsivity and immaturity, I posted the tweet about white males as an expression of frustration towards my male friend who wouldn't ask for directions. My tweet about posters described my actions after I saw and removed one poster that was hanging on campus that had not received proper university approval for on-campus posting."
How does she know that? How does she know that they didn't get proper approval?
Probably didn't have like a stamp like they do here.
They have stamps here?
Yeah, if you want a flyer here, you have to have a stamp on it. Otherwise, they can tell it's illegal or not authorized to pull
Oh,
it.
and like 90% of the posters I see hanging around here don't have stamps on them.
Yeah.
I should take them all down.
Yeah. She added, "I recognize that my words were neither humorous nor harmless, and sincerely apologize to all who have been hurt, offended, or embarrassed by them. My commitment to social justice remains steadfast and will not be deterred by these events, and I vow to use the maturity and sensitivity that would reflect that going forward."
No, she's not. I can guarantee you, when she said, she tried to say, it's frustration towards my male friend who wouldn't ask for directions. That makes you tweet out, "I fucking hate white men"? Yeah, I don't think so. And saying, I tore down one poster, but she's like, I want to tear down all the posters to try to put on campus to trick people? That doesn't sound like something that she's telling the truth about.
The weird thing is, so I'm from Wisconsin, so I've been to La Crosse many times personally, and La Crosse, I can tell you, is at least 95% white. So when she says, "I fucking hate white men," she hates pretty much all the white men in her town. Okay, it wasn't something directed toward just one thing her friend allegedly did. She's talking about the society at large she lives in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's really crazy.
The thing is, it's part of the greater left. I mean, most leftist SJW type, hardcore far left liberals, they agree with both things she said. They tore down those pro-life posters, they'd be okay with that. She says, "I hate fucking I fucking hate white men," they agree with that too. The only reason she resigned is because there was outrage over it. She's not sorry.
No.
She's sorry that she got caught, is what she's sorry for.
She's sorry that people made a big deal about it.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's all we have for current year college craziness this week. Sorry, there wasn't really too much to talk about this week, surprisingly.
Eventually we're going to have a week where nothing happens.
Yeah, I guess. Let's go to the break. We'll come back with international news, and we'll close out the show. But we'll see you at the other side of the break. Hey, welcome back from the break. We're going to get into some international news, and we're going to start that off with some things in the Middle East. Bobby, you got the first thing with this earthquake happening out there?
Yes, I do. So last week on the show, we had breaking news that happened during the show. There was a massive earthquake. There was a 7.3 earthquake that hit on the Iraq-Iran border. The death toll from that has now gone up to over 400 people. So that's really all I have to say. It's just an update on that. It's injured about 6,700 people. Happened about 9:48 p.m. Iran time, 19 miles outside the eastern Iraqi city of Halabja. in Iran's, and it also happened since it was on the borders, in Iran's western Kermanshah province, which is a mountainous region. So they said that in Iraq, it only killed 7 people and injured about 535. So most of the deaths were Iranian. So not good. There's been about 100 aftershocks already. It was about 14.4 miles in depth. And yeah, so prayers to everyone affected there. Hopefully, they don't discover any more dead. Hopefully the people that were injured don't die. Because, I just got to say, dude, earthquakes, you don't want to deal with those earthquakes. We saw what happened in Japan. We see what happens in Haiti. You get these poorer regions, rural regions, like on the Iran-Iraq border. Doesn't exactly end well for anybody. So thankfully, we're here in Texas where we don't have earthquakes. Places like California, I can't say the same.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about that.
Let's move on to the next thing I have here. So there was a report that came out this week that shows that the U.S. coalition struck a deal with ISIS. The BBC has uncovered details of a secret deal that let hundreds of Islamic State fighters and their families escape from Raqqa under the gaze of the U.S. and British-led coalition and Kurdish forces who control the city. A convoy including some of IS's most notorious members and, despite reassurances, dozens of foreign fighters. Some of those have spread out across Syria, even making it as far as Turkey. So, yeah, not good stuff. I don't really like it when the U.S. government is allowing ISIS to just leave when, we're sieging Raqqa.
Yeah.
I don't know why the hell they did that, but
we'll see where it goes.
It's a thing that happened. Not everything we do is good.
But there are some things that we do that's good, and that is the last Iraqi town held by ISIS was finally recaptured. So they said Iraqi forces backed by U.S.-led coalition retook on Friday the last town held by ISIS, more than 3 years after militants stormed nearly a third of Iraq's territory. They said that military units and local tribal figures pushed into the city of Rawah, R-A-W-A-H, in western Anbar province, and after 5 hours of fighting, they retook the town, marking a strategic and massive military victory. Because since that was the last town that ISIS still controlled, ISIS in Iraq, gone. Remember we reported last week that Syria had pretty much dispelled ISIS from their areas, right?
Yes.
ISIS in Iraq, gone. ISIS in Syria, gone.
ISIS is pretty much dead.
With the exception of all the fighters they have all across the planet, which,
wherever they're spread out now.
They just take the name of ISIS. They're more just like,
But the Islamic State, as we used to know it, which used to span, across large swaths of Iraq and Syria, it's pretty much a thing of the past.
And, you'd think it would be this, letting out a sigh of relief, victory is like the end of World War II. No, it's just kind of like, oh, ISIS is defeated. Okay.
Yeah. Which is good.
This would be a bigger deal than it is. I've barely seen any U.S. stuff talking about this at all.
No.
The U.S. media especially talks about ISIS every single freaking day.
I think they haven't made a big deal about it because most of, the fighting that ended them has been on the behalf of Syria and Russia.
Yeah.
So, they don't want to give them credit for
they
doing
even
good things.
In this article alone, it even says it. It says both the U.S. and Russia have embedded special forces with their respective partners and are supporting their advances with airstrikes. Russia backs the Syrian government forces of President Bashar al-Assad, and the U.S. supports pretty much every side in the conflict. I hate to say it, but it's true. So ISIS is defeated in Iraq. ISIS is defeated in Syria. Let's just say ISIS is defeated in their territory. So,
yeah.
Really
good stuff.
Really good news.
Let's move on to Europe. This week, a UN official says that Europe is going to experience a second wave of refugees. Europe may face a second wave of migration as the situation in refugee camps in Africa and the Middle East is only getting worse, the head of the UN World Food Program said. He added that it is a clear link between hunger and migration. Living conditions, mostly food distribution, in refugee camps in crisis-affected regions had deteriorated dramatically before the European migrant crisis struck in 2015. David Beasley, the executive director of the World Food Program, told German newspaper Die Zeit, quote, We paid a heavy price for this mistake, and I'm afraid we're about to make it once again, Beasley believes. According to the UN food chief, while many asylum seekers wanted to stay in their home region, the lack of food had driven them away. Quote, if they don't have enough food, they will leave, and many of them will go to Europe. So, yeah, we saw the huge wave of refugees or economic migrants, or whatever you want to call them, back in 2015 when we saw millions of them come in. Looks like there's going to be another one coming soon here in 2018.
And remember, Pew Research shows only 3% of the 2.2 million migrants who entered Europe since 2015 were sent home.
Yeah.
So 97% of those people stay. So you start bringing in millions of more migrants.
And in the past,
Europe's already gone as it is. It's going to be gone even faster.
In the past, we've talked about the rates of their employment in Germany. Of all the millions that they've brought in, it's something ridiculous. Like only 3% even have jobs. They bring them in because their population's aging, so they need more taxpayers to pay for the entitlements, and that they have vast entitlements in places like Germany. But they're all just economic dependents. They're taking welfare, so yeah, it's going to collapse the system on them. And these more refugees coming, it's going to help things. People are already pissed enough about refugees being there.
You know what makes them even more pissed? When people are taking their kids to the petting zoo and they see a Muslim from fucking Syria, 23-year-old man, raping a pony at the petting zoo. Literally raping a pony at a petting zoo in front of full view of everybody that was there.
Yeah.
The incident happened 3 p.m. November 3rd in front of horrified visitors. A mom told the Berliner Morgenpost, my babysitter was at Gorlitzer Park with our son when they witnessed the man carrying out a sexual act on a pony. The woman said her babysitter had informed park staff about the incident, but is unwilling to talk about it any further because it was, quote, too traumatizing. A zoo employee told the German newspaper that the babysitter had taken a photo of the man as he committed the act and immediately contacted park staff, who then called the police. They said that the man was allegedly released. When the young man allegedly realized that he had been seen, he got off the animal and disappeared into the park. He is a suspect from Syria facing charges for violating the Animal Welfare Act and causing a public nuisance through sexual acts. Faces up to 3 years in prison. What he should face, in my personal opinion, is a one-way ticket back home or drop him off in the middle of the Pacific Ocean like I suggested for people last week.
Well, what the hell is this guy doing in Syria or in Germany? It's crazy, and these people aren't very well adjusted. I mean, the guy just went out and raped a pony.
Literally raped a pony at a petting zoo in front of people.
Petting zoo. Yeah.
I don't think they should be bringing in migrants that think it's okay to rape ponies at petting zoos. If they do, that might be a little red flag over there.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
But
let's go into some Sweden stuff.
Yeah, so I have a story, a very sad story out of Sweden. So there was a Swedish woman. Let me see if I can find her name here. Yeah, this actually. I'm sorry, I should have looked this up earlier to find her name. Anyways, there was a Swedish woman who her name was Lamotte. That was her last name. So Mrs. Lamotte here was raped. Actually, no, never mind. Lamotte was the name of the journalist who was taken. Anyways, there was a Swedish woman who was raped by a Syrian migrant earlier this year. She told the police. They conducted an investigation. It went to a prosecutor. The prosecutor cited a lack of evidence and failed to pursue the case properly, dropping the charges against the guy who raped her. She committed suicide just now.
And it's another refugee.
This girl would be alive if they hadn't brought in refugees who raped her. If she was making up these accusations...
Her name is Angelica.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I was reading through the whole thing and couldn't find it. So, rest in peace, Angelica. And here's the thing. Let's say there was a lack of evidence. If she was making it up, why would she kill herself? It was obviously true. The guy should be held liable for her killing herself. He should be charged with murder, is what he should be charged with, because that's essentially what he did. He raped her. He got off on no charges, and now she's dead because of the actions that he took place. You know what? I bet you he doesn't feel guilty whatsoever. I bet you he's going to go on, live the rest of his life in Syria, a place where not in Syria, in Sweden, a place where he shouldn't even be, and he's probably going to cause chaos and trouble even more. Well, this girl is buried 6 feet underground with a head gravestone. That's all that's going to happen. God, I hate this so much.
Really crazy stuff. Let's go into the next Sweden story.
Got another Swedish thing, Jesus.
In a report by the Total Defense Research Institute, the Swedish government has deemed that milk and the OK hand sign are hate symbols. The purpose of the report is to provide an insight into some digital environments with xenophobia as the common denominator. According to Spezia, the reports also include that profanity, expressions of fear, and anxiety are all considered to be hatred as well. The report contains a hate symbol section where Pepe the Frog is joined by swastikas along with milk and the OK sign.
I mean, I know milk was a symbol of white supremacy. And of course, the OK sign, that's definitely, so we can't do that anymore. And even Pepe the Frog. I mean, I love Pepe. Pepe's the best.
Spezia adds that the report was a first step to change the Swedish constitution, which the Swedish government once embarked upon to ban certain websites that reveal the ethnicity of convicted criminals, and of course to also silence free speech.
Because we can't have the ethnicity of convicted criminals released. I mean, that's part of the reason why the San Francisco BART metro station thing said they won't release security cam footage of incidents because they said it'll make people racist. Well, all that tells you is there's obviously a certain race doing that sort of stuff. But to say that, Pepe the Frog is going to be banned and is a hate symbol, and milk is a hate symbol, and okay.
Expressions of fear and anxiety are hatred.
The only time I ever feel any expressions of hate or anxiety, especially anxiety when I'm drinking milk, is if someone leaves it out too long and it starts to sour. That's when I get really hateful of the person who overdid it. That's when I feel anxious about the smelly smell smelling up my smelly room.
Yeah.
Put my milk back in, so.
Let's go into the next thing. EU Parliament tells Poland to uphold rule of law and democracy. The EU Parliament has adopted a resolution calling on Poland to uphold common European values, warning that if Polish authorities refuse to comply, it could lead to suspension of voting rights in the EU Council. The resolution calls on Warsaw to respect the right of freedom of assembly, to strongly condemn the xenophobic and fascist march that took place in Warsaw on November 11th, and to provide free and accessible contraception without discrimination while making emergency contraception available without medical prescription.
So, interesting. I mean, we remember the march that happened in Poland on November 11th.
It was last week.
It was their Independence Day march.
Yeah.
And they had thousands of people out there with, Polish
flags. 60,000, which, I mean, to put in perspective, if you did a comparison of population of Poland to the United States, it would be like if 600,000 people in the United States went out to a march for, independence.
It'd be awesome.
That would be crazy cool.
And, Poland hasn't taken in any refugees. And, apparently people had signs that, were anti-refugee signs, which is great, because at least there's one country out there sticking up for their own people and not wanting to bring refugees in. So I'm on board with that. And, hopefully...
But the EU Parliament says that that's not upholding common European values.
Well, Poland's about to not be part of the EU anyways, so,
So, interesting stuff there. We've been talking for months now. The EU condemns Poland for something.
And they haven't done anything either.
They haven't done anything to them yet.
And I don't personally think they ever will, because the EU, if Poland decides to leave, that's it for the EU. The entire thing collapses. They can't afford that happening.
The EU's already going to come apart.
Hungary's going to start to leave. Czech Republic's going to start to leave. All of a sudden, your Visegrad region is gone. Or if they stop obeying what the EU tells them to do, or they start enforcing their own laws, or they start to collectively group together, the EU doesn't have any control over them at that point. And all the other countries that are starting to have problems with the EU are going to be like, well, if they're leaving, so am I.
Which, I mean, we talked last week, there was reports in the German military where they're planning for that to actually happen, the dissolution of the EU, and they believe that it's going to come from these Eastern European states falling away, and they predicted it'd be around 2030, 2040 when this happens.
And I hope it does.
And, yeah, it looks like it might happen. So we'll have to see what happens going forward, I mean. Let's go into the last thing with Europe. You have it, right?
I do. So, Emmanuel Macron, president of France, is blaming France for the rise of Islamic radicalization. He said that he's blaming France for the rise and said that France was not good enough for the youths as he outlined a series of social programs for the country's migrant-dominated low-income neighborhoods. He said radicalization has taken hold because the French Republic has resigned. He said in a speech at the northern French city of Tourcoing near Lille as he outlined 15 social policies. In focusing on the low-income housing projects, which are home to large Muslim populations that were known for mass riots nearly a decade ago, he said, quote, "I will never confuse the few thousand radicalized and the millions of inhabitants of these neighborhoods," acknowledging that in many of these troubled territories, radicalization has taken hold, and he said that the fact should leave the nation to question itself. He said, "This radicalization happened because the Republic gave up," he told the crowd, "and if we allowed in too many cities, too many districts, representatives of a distortion of a religion who are full of hate and disenfranchisement to provide solutions that the Republic no longer gives." And the former Socialist Party member pledged to restore the French Republic because, quote, "I cannot ask a young person to believe in the Republic when it is not up to par." So he's claiming that the reason why all these people in these like Muslim neighborhoods in France are becoming radicalized is because France pretty much doesn't care about them and gave up on them.
What duty do they have to them?
They don't belong in that country to begin with.
I mean, if they were born there, I guess, I mean, they're just citizens as well, but... Yeah. You know, a lot of them are just recent immigrants as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Something tells me that even if the French government was providing for them, I doubt that would change much. I really, really do.
Yeah. Let's go on to Asia. So, one person is killed as a mob of 20,000 Muslims burned down a Hindu village in Bangladesh after rumors spread that a local had insulted the Prophet Muhammad on Facebook. One person was killed and at least 5 more seriously injured after 20,000 Muslims attacked Hindu homes in the village of Takubari in the Rangapur Sadar region of the country on Friday. Police fired rubber bullets and tear gas at the crowd after trouble flared when a villager allegedly posted a defamatory status about the Prophet Muhammad. By the time the police arrived at the village, at least 30 homes had already been burned down, while others had been looted and vandalized, according to the Dhaka Tribune. Crazy stuff. That's really insane. It's hard to even imagine. Someone said something disparaging, allegedly, in that village about the Prophet Muhammad, and it got a mob of 20,000 people to just attack the entire village.
And this is this is a poor village. Like, we're talking about, houses made of, bamboo rods and sticks and, sheet metal. We're not talking about, homes. I mean, Western-style giant houses here. I'm surprised more people didn't die, personally. God, 20,000 people get together and be like, let's go burn down this neighborhood? What kind of person does that? Honestly.
Yeah, and it's just we always talk about, radical Islam, but it just seems like it's Islam. They just got all surrounding people in the villages that were just hey, he defamed the Prophet Muhammad, let's all go and burn their village down. It didn't seem like it was a radical tinge of it. It just seems like what people commonly believe out there. So, yeah, really, really crazy stuff out in Bangladesh. Let's go next on to Australia. Australia had an election, or not an election this week. They had a postal survey in regards to legalizing same-sex marriage. So this isn't a binding thing. You actually voted through the mail. Kind of weird. But the results revealed Wednesday by the Australian Bureau of Statistics shows that 61% of the population voted to allow same-sex marriage, while 38% were against it. Now, like I said, this is non-binding, so it's up to the Australian Parliament to do something about this, but I guess they're going to use this as precedent to, legalize gay marriage. So, yeah, I guess that's good if you want that.
Yeah, they said it was a 2-month national postal survey, so it took 2 months to complete that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. I'm not really going to say what my opinion on that is.
I mean, if you like that, great. If you don't like that, not great. I mean, I think every region should have the right to decide things for themselves, so if that's what they wanted, then that's what they got. So,
yeah.
Fantastic.
Let's go on to the last story of the week. This is some interesting stuff. So, apparently, there was a coup d'etat in Zimbabwe. Robert Mugabe, who's the dictator of Zimbabwe, he has been since the 80s. He's currently 93 years old. He is currently under house arrest. This all started when General S.B. Moyo appeared on national television in uniform and insisted, "We wish to make it abundantly clear that this is not a military takeover of the government." But however, the military patrolled the streets of the capital, Harare, and ordered troops to barracks, according to South African news website news24.com. And Mugabe is under house arrest. They claim that they're going after some criminal conspirators in the government, but we don't really know exactly what's going on. But it is pretty interesting that there's a coup d'etat happening. Yeah, allegedly, maybe.
I mean, we all saw the photos of the the guys in military uniforms on TV, ensuring you that there's no coup going on. Yeah, because the last thing that's going to ensure me that no coup is going on is when a guy in full military gear, or not full military, in full military uniform, is live on TV telling me that there's no coup going on. So,
really weird stuff.
I mean, Mugabe sucks. He's got to leave. I mean, he's 93 years old. Like, the guy's terrible.
I remember a month or two back, we reported that he said that he's in good health to keep ruling till he's 100.
I don't know if Zimbabwe can take 7 more years of that guy.
Yeah, he really destroyed that country to such a crazy degree. The policies they enacted that brought up the hyperinflation. That's why they can't even use their currency anymore. They have to use foreign currency because Mugabe destroyed the nation with his policies. But I guess I don't know if this is actually a coup and they take him out of power. I mean, I'd be down for that.
Yeah, I'd be down for that too.
But with that said, I don't have anything else.
No, all I got to say is this is the first episode we've ever released on a Saturday. So
I think we have done it once before.
Did we do it on a Saturday before?
I believe so.
Either way, it's one of
not often, but a rare Saturday show.
I guess to end it, we'll just plug what we normally plug. So we have a Twitter account. It's at DJT Radio. The link will be in the description box of this episode if you want to look at that or look it up. Also, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can always email us at TrumPrepublicRadio@gmail.com. What else do we have to plug here at the end?
We have the PewTube. You can see us on PewTube. You may be even listening to us on PewTube.
And that's PEW.TUBE.
We are also on YouTube. But we're big supporters of PewTube as well.
Yeah, so. PewTube is awesome. We are actually going to be in the future having an interview with the creator of PewTube later on. So look forward to that as well.
Also, if you want to help us with our hosting fees, you can help us out. There's a link in the description to do so. That's paypal.me/TrumpRepublicRadio. And that helps us to pay for the show so that you can get it.
And also, if you're listening on iTunes, please do leave a review of the episode on iTunes, because that helps with the algorithms and getting us out there. So please definitely do that if possible.
Yeah, it's a major help if you can give us a review on iTunes. It goes a long way. Other than that, I don't have anything else to plug.
No, I think we're good.
Thank you for listening, listener, to another episode of Trump Republic Radio, and have a good one.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.